Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. The sand, previously raised in huge clouds by the fury of the combatants, now began to settle, revealing the scenery devastated by the fight. The ground was marked by deep craters, and the air still vibrated with the echo of the powerful impacts. The rebels, who had arrived with hearts full of determination and anger, now found themselves paralyzed, watching aghast at the consequences of the clash between beings of unimaginable power. The flame giant had managed to subdue the other titan, the shock, admiration, and fear dominating the faces of the rebels as they witnessed the end of the confrontation with the 2 monsters disappearing. This left them cautious, as the scene of the giants fighting each other gave way to just the wind of the desert with some flames still burning in the place with several holes. The rebels, who witnessed a power that defied reality, began to question their own position in this increasingly mysterious and fragile world. The fight had ended, but the disappearance of the giants did not calm them down, because this gave way to more doubts than what they had witnessed in this place. What was that? It looked like the end of the world. One of them broke the silence, scared, rubbing his eyes trying to understand what he had just witnessed. I've never seen anything like it. They were giants, monsters. Another rebel, with a pale face of fear, looks at the place where the battle occurred. This changes everything. How are we going to continue our attack on the capital after this? A third rebel, worried, questions his companions, looking for answers. I don't think they are enemies. It looked like one was trying to stop the other. Another comments, being an observer, tries to make sense of the situation. But what if they come back? What if they decide to attack the cities? Can anyone stop them? A young man, fearful, looks around to see if the others share his concern. We can't continue with the plan now. We need to go back and rethink our strategy. The leader of the rebels, with a serious and determined expression, signals to the group. You're right. We don't know what they are or what they want. It's better to retreat for now. A commander of the forces, agreeing with the leader, begins to move away. Together, the rebels begin to retreat slowly, occasionally looking back at the site of the fight hoping that another giant would appear again. Many are confused, some still fearful, but all are re-evaluating their position and their plans. Luffy approaches the rebels at high speed without them noticing, and before they can react, he falls like a rocket in front of the rebel leader, who is startled trying to calm his also scared horse. Boom. What is this? An enemy attack? Someone shouts. Yo. A shadow appears from the raised sand, and Luffy appears with his hat on his head. Who are you? The leader of the rebel shouts a little alarmed. So you're Koza? Vivi's childhood friend? Luffy approaches nonchalantly. Who are you? He asks again, pointing his gun at Luffy. Such a bad mood. Well anyway, I'm stopping your attack. Luffy speaks calmly, he's not afraid of a bullet, none of that has an effect on him. Koza was very cautious, after all that confusion with colossal monsters, this man emerges from nowhere, saying he won't make the coup anymore. But before the man could react, Luffy released his haki, the wave expanded throughout the area, it wasn't strong enough to affect all 40,000, but 10,000 people fell to the ground kneeling while their horses collapsed unconscious. I see you quickly dealt with them, Captain. Hugo appeared next to Luffy, but no longer with his usual cheerful demeanor. Yes, but there are still 30,000 to deal with behind these. Luffy speaks and amplifies his voice to echo through the entire army. I am Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. And you just saw what happened in a fight between me and another crew member. His tone travels through the entire army, and everyone becomes aware that the giant monster was actually a man. This alarms them. He's a pirate? But that power. How is it possible for a man to become that monster? This was the talk of many. I'm not here to fight you. I came to stop the conflict in Alabasta. Now, tell me, will you continue this fight knowing what you might face? The 30,000 who were not affected by the Conqueror's haki exchange uncertain looks, while the 10,000 that Luffy hit with his aura no longer had the will to fight against the pirate. Luffy's presence, combined with the reminder of the power he and Hugo demonstrated, makes them reconsider their next steps. We just want justice for our people. We've been suffering for years. It was Koza who shouted at Luffy, even affected by the haki and kneeling, he still raised his voice. Luffy nods, understanding their position. He knows that more needs to be done to resolve the issues in Alabasta, but for now, he would avoid further bloodshed. Let me tell you some things you don't know. I defeated Crocodile. He was responsible for the drought and your suffering. We have proof of all his schemes. He wanted to become the king of Alabasta. And now, Alabasta is my territory. Luffy declares to all of them, knowing that it would not be so easily accepted with just these words. The rebels murmur among themselves, uncomfortable and suspicious of Luffy's declaration. It was shocking enough what he told them about Crocodile and they didn't believe him. But the idea of a pirate claiming the country as his territory is something they cannot accept. We cannot accept this. You are a pirate. If what you said is true, what guarantees us that you won't be like Crocodile or worse? Luffy realizes the distrust and fear in their eyes. The concern for the future of their country is palpable. He knows that words will not be enough to convince them, so he decides to show the seriousness of his determination and the weight of his authority. I'm not like Crocodile. I protect what's mine. I don't want to rule you, but as long as Alabasta is my territory, I'll protect it. From other pirates, from the Marines, from anyone who threatens its peace. That I promise. I am a pirate. I do what I want. I'm warning you for one reason only, Vivi asked me. Otherwise. His voice becomes graver, and he raises his hand, where a small flame begins to dance in his palm. Using his more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit ability, he increases the intensity of the flame, which grows and transforms into a colossal fireball. The rebels look up, terrified, as the fireball illuminates Luffy's face with a sinister glow. I wouldn't have so much patience. With a quick and precise movement, Luffy launches the giant fireball into the sky. It rises, a burning star against the blue of the desert, before exploding in a thunderous boom that echoes for miles. The explosion is a spectacle of light and sound, a demonstration of power that leaves an indelible mark on the desert horizon. The rebels, startled by this, realize that this pirate's power could annihilate the entire army. Who could fight against that? I could end your coup with this, but I'm doing a favor to a crewmate, but don't test me. If it's to maintain peace in this country, I'll eliminate all of you. I'm not saying your lives will continue the same, but wait a few more days, all the truth will be revealed and without Crocodile and his schemes, the rain will return to the country. A silence began to echo through the rebel army, not wanting to face what they had just witnessed. I give up. I don't want to be part of this coup. Yes, if you speak the truth, we don't want to fight anymore. I surrender. Please, spare us, I don't want to die like this. We understand. Alabasta is now under your protection. Koza finally spoke, kneeling, struggling to face Luffy and speak. Luffy, satisfied with the response, extinguishes the last flames from his hand and looks up at the sky, where the smoke from the explosion still lingers. Good. As long as nobody threatens the peace of Alabasta, there won't be any problems. But if someone tries, I'll be here. With that, Luffy looks at Hugo. Let's go back, I'm heading to the capital to resolve Crocodile's last schemes, and you. Luffy turned back to the rebel leader. Wait a few more days, you'll know I'm telling the truth anyway. He starts jumping into the air with Hugo following him back to the Black Pearl, leaving the rebels behind to contemplate all they saw and heard in this place. As Luffy approached the Black Pearl with Hugo, the silhouette of the ship stands out against the desert horizon. On board, the crew has already noticed them and gather on the deck to receive Luffy and Hugo. Chopper, the crew's doctor, is particularly eager to check on Hugo's condition after seeing him behind Luffy, injured with a broken arm. Luffy, how is he? What happened out there? Ha ha ha. We fought in that form, and I went a little overboard. Luffy scratches his head. Luffy. Being Luffy. Lamy mocks. Come on, my doctor. I also took a nice punch, how about you take care of me? Luffy smiles approaching Lamy. You're womanizing Captain, I know exactly what you want, get lost. Lamy yells at Luffy. Some laugh at this interaction. Nay. It seems everything turned out alright in the end, that's great. Ecchi seems to be crying with joy. Hey, Luffy. What was that explosion a little while ago? Did you deal with the rebel army? You didn't create a massacre transformed into that monster, did you? Vivi approaches Luffy anxiously and demands answers. Luffy looks at Vivi, his usual smile appearing on his face. He knows his actions may have been extreme, but they were necessary to ensure Alabasta's safety and assert his presence as a force to be reckoned with. That was just a bit of what I can do. I wanted everyone to know that Alabasta is under my protection now. And about the rebels, well, I just showed them that it's not worth challenging me. Vivi absorbs Luffy's words. She knows his actions are controversial, but she can't deny that he managed to achieve something that seemed impossible, and when he says he ended the coup, she trusts him. You really overdo it, but I can't deny it was amazing, Luffy, even if many don't understand your methods. She admitted with a blush on her face and then asks. But is it over? Is Alabasta now out of danger? We just need to disclose the evidence against Crocodile, but we'll do that when we are in the capital. I doubt the Marines will stand still after finding out we are holding a vice admiral. They'll try to rescue him and we'll make that exchange at that moment. Luffy declares and Vivi nods. Thank you, Luffy. Vivi speaks with some tears in her eyes, thinking that it's finally ending. No need to thank me, Vivi. That's what crewmates do, right? Luffy crosses his arms. Everyone in the crew looks at that with a smile on their face, as they agreed with the captain. So to the capital, Luffy? Usopp asked. Yes, Ecchi, direct us to the capital, just follow the Vivre card of Nami I gave you. Luffy instructed and the fishman accepted. Look Megalo, we are finally going to see Vivi's home. Shirahoshi exclaims happily. Sharky. Kau. Crew is also missing home. Vivi looks at her duck with a happy smile. Shall we train, Luffy? Kuina asked, knowing they didn't have much to do here. Sure, we have some time before we reach the capital, we can't waste it, can we? Luffy smiles and everyone goes to the training room after stabilizing the Black Pearl in the direction of the capital. The Black Pearl continues its journey, leaving behind the desert and the tumultuous events. With this, the crew went to train and strengthen again, knowing that finally, Alabasta may be at peace for now. Chapter 153, Alabasta 22. The Black Pearl advances through the desert, the arid landscape beginning to reveal the capital of the country, elevated on a kind of large rock, giving it a unique architecture. Get ready, folks. We're arriving in Alubarna. Vivi yells happily. Kaeru. Her duck seems equally excited. Vivi's words are met with nods. Their week-long journey in Alabasta is finally coming to an end. As the Black Pearl approaches the capital, Luffy notices shadows appearing in the sky. You took too long. Nami says dissatisfied while crossing her arms. Ha 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 ha, did you get outnumbered? Yamato comments laughing, looking at the addition to the crew like Broggy and Dory with Chopper in a corner afraid of the two newcomers. We've been holed up in that palace these last few days, just training and dodging some of the king's assassins. Nami comments dissatisfied. No need to be like that, I'll relieve your boredom soon. Luffy with super speed appears behind them before grabbing them by the waist and whispering in their ears with a smile so no one else hears. I'd like that. Yamato responds with a smile. I hope this makes it worth being away from you for 2 weeks. Nami said dissatisfied, but with a blush on her face. Luffy smiles, satisfied. Anyway, let's go. I have some new crew and fleet members to introduce. Luffy says and takes them to the crew. The Black Pearl approaches Alubarna. The ship did not go unnoticed by the people at the gates. Yamato and Nami had already commented that Luffy and his crew were approaching, but for some people, it was a surprise. The ship stopped near the entrance and the crew disembarked for Luffy to store it in his pocket, before they continued. Now Luffy, Yamato, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Zoro, Lamy, Vippo, Chaochu, Usopp, Nami, Reiju, Hugo, Nojiko, Ecchi, Kuina, Alvida, Laboon, Vivi, Crew, Nico Robin, Chopper, Broggy, and Dory also, followed to the city on foot. Who are you? One of the guards goes on alert, as Yamato had warned the king that Luffy was coming and had gone out to meet him. No gate guards had been notified, hence the expression of caution with the group. Vivi. Luffy murmurs and Vivi steps forward. I am Princess Vivi, I'm going to meet my father. I would like you to open the gate. Vivi said. Princess Vivi, said one of the guards. It's really her. Another exclaimed, recognizing her. It was no surprise to anyone Vivi's unique features to the country, even more in the capital itself. Let's do this, Princess Vivi-sama. Do you want an escort to the palace? A guard asked. No need to worry, I'm quite safe with them, let's go, folks. Vivi exclaimed and they entered the city after climbing the stairs. Luffy's group passed through the streets while everyone walked and made comments here and there about the place. The people noticing the strange group couldn't help but be surprised by it, making similar comments to when they were in Lobe Town. Some recognized Luffy as the captain of the Straw Hats and exclaimed in shock. After all, it was a pirate band with almost 500,000. What kind of crime they must have committed to have that bounty on their heads? Upon arriving at the palace, they are received by guards who quickly recognize the crew that fought alongside their princess. They are led through opulent corridors, decorated with tapestries and artifacts that speak of the rich history and culture of Alabasta. Finally, they enter the main hall, where King Cobra waits them. The king, a man of noble posture and gentle expression, receives them with a warm thank you as he rises from his throne to greet them. Captain Monkey D. Luffy and his crew, welcome to the Royal Palace of Alabasta. I am aware of everything you've done and Alabasta is in debt to you. No need to thank us, King Cobra. Helping Alabasta was our choice. Luffy responds with an unpretentious smile. Even so, it's disturbing how our country was being covered with a shadow that we couldn't do anything about and how you, along with my daughter, emerged and helped this kingdom out of a crisis. The king praises, looking at the diverse crew. That's just what we do, King Cobra. Besides, Vivi is part of our crew. We couldn't leave one of our territories in danger. Luffy continues, indicating Vivi with a hand gesture. Vivi, my daughter. King Cobra approaches his daughter and hugs her, his gaze full of admiration for his most precious possession. Hello, Daddy. She says with a smile. Now tell me everything that happened and your plans. He turned his attention back to Luffy, who nodded. They exchange information, with Luffy reporting the attack against Crocodile, confrontation with the rebels, and the declaration of Alabasta as his territory. King Cobra listens attentively, recognizing the complexity of the new reality that his nation faces. Your support and protection mean a lot to us. Alabasta will face many challenges ahead, but with friends like you, I have hope for the future. Luffy, with a confident smile, responds, we'll always be here if you need us. Alabasta is part of our journey now. You plan to spend a few days here, right? Let's arrange a room for everyone. And with that, the Straw Hat crew spends some time in the palace, resting, recovering from the journey. When night falls, a grand banquet is prepared in honor of their heroism in the country. They celebrate the victory over Crocodile and the restored peace. And as always, the group is quite peculiar, especially at the joint banquet. The hall of the Alabasta Palace is lit by torches and chandeliers, creating a welcoming atmosphere for the banquet in honor of the Straw Hat Pirates and their allies. The table is filled with local delicacies, exotic fruits, and succulent meats. The sound of music and laughter fills the air as crew members and kingdom guests mingle and celebrate. Luffy, already with a full plate, yells excitedly, "This is amazing! It's not better than Reiju's food, but it's so tasty." He tries to balance a giant piece of meat in his mouth. He used a lot of his energy in the last days, so he needed to replenish his energies. Yamato, sitting next to Luffy, laughs, "Don't forget to chew, Luffy. We don't want you to choke." She herself can't resist and grabs a chicken leg. Shirahoshi, a little shy amidst the crowd, looks at the dishes with curiosity. So much food I've never tried before. Can I really taste everything? Megalo, by her side, makes a noise of approval. Sharky. Zoro, trying to get up to get more sake, ends up getting lost and going in the opposite direction. Hey, this isn't the way to the kitchen. He murmurs confused. Lami, watching from afar, comments with Bippo, those two never change, do they? Always getting lost or eating too much. Bippo just smiles and agrees with a nod. Chaochu, lying at Luffy's feet, barks happily whenever a piece of food falls from the table. Luffy laughs and gives him a special piece of meat. Usopp, trying to impress some palace guests, exaggerates in his stories, and then, with a single shot, I defeated a giant beast. Chopper, listening, nods enthusiastically, totally convinced. Reiju, preparing some special dishes in the kitchen, calls Terracotta, the palace's cook, "Come taste this. You as a chef will love it." Terracotta, moved, rushes to taste and praises, "It's amazing. You have a natural talent." Hugo, with his calm manner, chats with Nojiko and Huki about the different cultures they encountered on their travels. Kuina, the young swordsman, listens attentively, dreaming of her own adventures. Alvida, always trying to draw Luffy's attention, offers him the juiciest piece of meat. Luffy, "Dear, try this." Luffy, distracted, accepts without realizing her intention, continuing to have fun with the others. Nami, glued to the side of Luffy like Yamato, puts another piece in the captain's mouth. Meanwhile, Broggy and Dory share stories of their epic fights with others, making everyone around laugh and ask for more details. The night advances with food, drink, and many stories. King Cobra, watching the scene, smiles, knowing that his kingdom has gained strong allies and unique friends. And, in the middle of it all, the cheerful sound of Luffy's laughter echoes, uniting everyone in a memorable celebration. As everyone settles down, King Cobra proposes a toast. To the health of the Straw Hat Pirates, to the heroes of Alabasta, and to lasting friendship. Everyone raises their glasses in a toast. The laughter and stories being shared continue with an overall feeling of camaraderie and relief. Luffy, thank you again. You not only saved Alabasta but also brought joy and hope back to our people. Vivi approached wearing a blue dress. It's nothing, Vivi. All this is very good, and you look beautiful. Luffy spoke but turned his attention to the food. Nami and Yamato, who seemed to be glued to him at that moment. Vivi blushed but soon joined Shirahoshi. Sometime later, Luffy leaves the banquet and heads to the throne room, where the king called him for a private conversation. He finally meets King Cobra. King Cobra, sitting on his throne with the posture of a leader who carries the weight of an entire country, looks seriously at Luffy. Despite being grateful, there is a clear concern in his eyes, a father's worry. Captain Monkey D. Luffy, I want to thank you again for what you did for Alabasta. But there's something we need to discuss, about my daughter, Vivi. Luffy, with his usual casualness, nods, indicating he's listening. Vivi mentioned an agreement between you. She chose to join your crew to help her people, but that also means she's more under your protection, right? That's right. Vivi is my crewmate, of course, she will be protected. Luffy speaks calmly. And nothing more? Monkey D. Luffy, I don't want to seem intrusive, but as a father, there's something that has been weighing on my mind. He said seriously. Luffy tilts his head, indicating for the king to proceed. There was something in the seriousness of the king's gaze that made him pay attention. You and Vivi have spent a lot of time together, facing dangers and sharing victories. She talks a lot about you and your companions. I can see. She has special fondness for you. And I, as a father, cannot help but worry about what this might mean for her future, and potentially for the future of our lineage. Luffy scratches his head, wondering where the king was going with this, but played dumb. Well, Vivi is amazing. We all like her. Yes, but it's not just that. King Cobra insists, choosing his words carefully. Luffy, you are a young man, on a path that leads to many dangers and discoveries. Vivi, as your companion, will be at your side on this path. But what will happen if, one day, this closeness leads to something more? If she chooses to start a family with you? The word family makes Luffy stop for a moment. He imagined having several children in the future, but that only after his journey when he becomes a conqueror and has a safer life to give attention to the children. After all, he wanted to raise his own children with their mothers. I don't know. Luffy admits. I haven't thought much about it now, as I intend to finish my journey before building a family. Even so, accidents can happen and I'm talking about something like children, Captain Monkey D. Luffy. My grandchildren. The future heir to the throne of Alabasta. King Cobra explains. If Vivi chooses this path with you, she will be choosing a life very different from what she could have here. And that worries me, not just as a king, but as a father. Will she be happy? Will she and the children be safe in such an uncertain world? Luffy falls silent, pondering the king's words. He had never considered the idea of having children or the impact his lifestyle could have on them. About that, I will create a world where I can protect my wives and my children. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that we won't leave our friends or our family behind. That's what we do, isn't it? Luffy says with a determination that even surprises King Cobra. The king sighs, a mix of concern and confidence shining in his eyes. I just hope you're right, Luffy. And I hope that Vivi finds the happiness she deserves, whether in Alabasta or sailing the seas with you. Luffy nods, the king's words echoing in his mind. He knows there is much to consider and that today's choices will shape tomorrow, for him, for Vivi, and for any future they may create together. They continue to talk a little more about the future of Alabasta and the plans of the Straw Hats. When the conversation ends, Luffy stands up, ready to join two specific companions. He bids farewell to the king with a nod and goes to one of the palace's rooms. In this place there were two women waiting for him with no surprise. Nami and Yamato had expelled Alvida and Nojiko to have a night alone with Luffy, wanting to catch up on 2 weeks of not sleeping with their man. Luffy sighed before entering because this night would be one filled with activities to satisfy two beauties. Chapter 154, Alabasta 23. The following morning, Luffy's vibrant energy was palpable as he left the room, accompanied by his companions. Lack of sleep didn't seem to affect him. He was more concerned about having a cold beer as he headed to the great hall where his crewmates were already gathered. Entering the room with an enthusiastic good morning, he was greeted with a mix of salutations and exclamations. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Luffy. Good morning, husband, echoed through the hall. The variety of greetings reflected the diversity and closeness of his crew. So you're the captain? During the lively meal, a woman bearing a striking resemblance to Igaram emerged. Yes, you're Igaram's wife, aren't you? Luffy asked. That's right. May I know why my husband hasn't returned to Alabasta? She inquired. He's handling some stuff for me in Whiskey Peak, don't worry, he'll be back soon. Luffy responds. His answer seemed to reassure her, and she returned to the kitchen. Captain. What are we going to do now? Zoro asked in his typical style. Hey, how can you drink rum for breakfast? Usopp yells at Zoro drinking from a barrel. We're going to stay here for a few days, as I said. When the Navy arrives, We'll leave. During these days, we'll train and enjoy the city. Luffy declares his plans and everyone nods. After breakfast, Luffy heads to the castle courtyard. He takes the black pearl from his pocket and throws it into the yard. Using his more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit ability to bring it back to normal size, a 50-meter ship falls to the ground, creating an impact in the castle. Damn pirates. What's happening? I'm hungry. Nobody feeds us for hours. Among screams of surprise and complaints of hunger from the prisoners in the prison feeling the ship's impact, Luffy couldn't hear them. With the Black Pearl now in the courtyard, Luffy and his crew prepare for the coming days with extensive training and hobbies around the city, enjoying their extended stay in Alabama. Let's go, it's time to train. Luffy speaks and everyone enters the training area to focus on training and improving their skills. Come on, guys. I want to see everyone improving. Luffy, as the leader, established a simple routine for the coming days, training and enjoying the city. The crew agreed. The training sessions were intense and focused on the 6 styles and hockey. Luffy encouraged everyone in his usual way, pushing them to improve and hone their skills. Yamato, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Zoro, Lamy, Bippo, Chaochu, Usopp, Nami, Reiju, Hugo, Nojiko, Hucky, Kuina, Alvida, Laboon, Vivi, Crew, Nico, Robin, Chopper, Bragi, Dory, and even Pell participated in this rigorous training. Between training sessions, the crew explored Alubarna. They marveled at the unique architecture, strolled through bustling markets, and interacted with the locals. The evenings were filled with laughter and a customary feast, with Luffy ending his night spending time with 4 women and then sneaking off to Robin's room in the middle of the night. After intense days of training and sightseeing, Luffy realizes it's time to address the last pending issues with King Cobra before the Navy arrives. He understands the importance of establishing a solid foundation for the territories now under his influence and protection. Luffy, accompanied by key members of his crew, meets with King Cobra in his office with some main ministers. King Cobra, as Alabasta is now part of the territories we protect, I want to discuss an alliance. Continue, Captain Monkey D. Luffy. Please, call me Luffy from now on. Luffy suggested. Luffy then. Cobra spoke, and Luffy continued his explanation. We have an alliance among various kingdoms and places that have become our territories. Including Goa Kingdom, Kokoyasi, Syrup, a company in Logue Town, Whiskey Peak, Drum, and now Alabasta. I want all of them to have an exclusive commercial and military agreement among themselves. King Cobra, aware of the power and influence such an alliance would bring, ponders the implications. This would bring stability and security to Alabasta and the other involved kingdoms. But how exactly would it work? Well, we will all support each other. If one kingdom is in danger, the others will help. And we will all exchange things with free trade and no taxation on some things, like food, medicine, technology, and weapons. This way, everyone gets stronger and safer. The king nods, understanding the logic and strength behind the proposal. This sounds promising, Luffy. Alabasta would be honored to be part of this alliance. I will discuss with my advisors and handle the details with you and your crew. But what about the world government? They certainly won't let this happen. Yes, but you can do all this with all these countries, islands, and trading companies. It will take some time until they discover our connection, and when that happens, I will have enough power to threaten them before they try to do anything against any of my territories. Don't worry. Luffy spoke. He had a plan that he would execute in a few months that would make the 5 elders rethink a little before attacking any kingdom under his flag. The meeting continues with discussions on how to implement and manage this alliance, addressing issues like communication between the kingdoms, mutual defense, and stimulating trade and cooperation. Luffy, although not fond of details and formalities, understands the importance of ensuring that his friends and territories are safe and prosperous. Bippo, the polar bear mink who is much more than just a cute member of the crew, plays a crucial role in planning and structuring the alliance proposed by Luffy. With his astute mind for economics and politics, he has become an essential piece in creating a solid and sustainable plan for the alliance between the territories, while Luffy and Bippo discuss their plans with the Council of Alabasta. During the meeting with King Cobra, Bippo is present alongside Luffy, carrying documents, maps, and charts illustrating possible trade routes, defense agreements, and economic development plans for the allied territories. Look, King Cobra, by establishing direct trade routes between Alabasta and the other territories, we can reduce costs and increase trade efficiency. Additionally, with a common defense fund, we can ensure mutual security against external threats. I think a port being built on this side of the country will help trade with the Drum Kingdom, Whiskey Peak, and with the entrance of the Grand Line. King Cobra, impressed with the depth of knowledge and strategic skill of Bippo, listens attentively and asks questions. Bippo responds with a clear vision of how these relations can benefit everyone involved. Impressive, Bippo. Your knowledge is extremely valuable. We can structure all this in a way that benefits everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry. Bippo blushes and mutters apologies as always. Over the following days, Luffy let Bippo work tirelessly, consulting with economists and politicians from Alabasta and the other territories, refining the agreements and ensuring that all aspects of the alliance are considered and optimized. He also coordinates with Nami, the navigator and treasurer of the group, to ensure that the trade routes are not only economically viable but also safe and efficient. With Bippo at the forefront of economic and political structuring, the alliance promoted by Luffy has a solid foundation for success, demonstrating that the Straw Hat Pirates are not just a powerful force on the seas but also a positive and constructive influence on the territories they choose to protect and ally with. After the details of the alliance are discussed and plans are well underway, King Cobra decides it's time to share one of Alabasta's most closely guarded secrets with Luffy and Nico Robin, one that Luffy had already asked him for. He invites them for a visit to the Royal Cemetery, a place that holds much of the kingdom's history and where a poneglyph rests. They walk towards a discreet entrance leading underground. As they descend, Luffy creates a flame that hovers in the air, lighting the way. At the center of the room rests the poneglyph. This is one of the great secrets of Alabasta, a poneglyph. For generations, my family has protected this relic and the knowledge it contains. Despite the knowledge on it still being a mystery to me. Robin approaches, her eyes shining with the excitement of an archaeologist before another valuable discovery. She reads exactly what Luffy told her 2 weeks ago, as if he were some kind of seer, making her look at the man she loves and think even more about who he could be and how he has all that knowledge. Luffy, this poneglyph. It talks about Pluton, exactly as you said. Even its location. She murmurs a bit dazed. Luffy calmly nods and turns to Cobra. King Cobra, this poneglyph is very dangerous for Alabasta. If the world government or other pirates discover you have information about Pluton, they won't hesitate to attack. Alabasta could become the target of a buster call. Crocodile was already looking for it, there's no doubt this information could fall into the hands of others. King Cobra looks at Luffy, recognizing the sincerity in his words. He knows well the ruthless reputation of the world government when it comes to secrets that threaten their power. What do you suggest, then? Cobra inquires, the concern evident in his voice. Well, my suggestion is that we take the poneglyph with us on the Black Pearl. If it's under our protection, Alabasta won't be associated with it and will be free of suspicion. This way, we can ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands and that your kingdom remains safe and far from imminent dangers. Luffy is right. Interrupts Robin, her voice carrying a serious and somber tone. It's prudent to keep the poneglyph on the move and away from ambitious eyes. I saw what happened to Ohara, my homeland, and I don't wish for any other nation to suffer the same fate. The fear of the Buster Call has haunted her since she was 8 years old, a memory that burns like an eternal flame in her heart. King Cobra remained silent for a long moment, the weight of the decision weighing on his shoulders. Finally, he nods, adopting the resolute expression of a leader who recognizes what must be done for the greater good of his people. If this is the best way to ensure the safety of Alabasta and its people, then I agree. I place my trust in you, Straw Hat Pirates, to protect this ancient legacy. Don't worry, King Cobra. We will protect the poneglyph with our lives and ensure that Alabasta stays safe from any threat. Nothing will happen. Luffy responds with an ironclad determination, promising not only the safety of the artifact but also the peace for the Desert Kingdom. With a plan in action and a new cargo on board, Luffy returned to his crew. We're leaving Alabasta soon, King Cobra said. The Navy is coming here, our time is running out, so finish up any pending business and we'll depart soon. Luffy mentioned, and the next day in the middle of the desert, a group of Marines was approaching Alabarna at that moment. Captain Smoker. We are arriving at the capital. Dashigi spoke. Great, let's wait for the Commodores to decide our next steps. He said, since he wasn't the highest rank there, he has to follow the orders of one of the Commodores of the group. Let's move forward, inform everyone to prepare for battle, we must rescue the Vice Admiral and the Warlord, said the Commodore in front of the whole group. Yes, for justice. For justice. All the Marines would fight against the Straw Hats, even knowing their strength, fighting for their ideal, they would willingly sacrifice themselves to defeat the evil. Chapter 155, Alabasta 24. On one morning, Luffy was informed that the Marines were approaching the town. A group of Commodores with Captain Smoker, the White Hunter of the Navy, has arrived at the capital. He is here to rescue Vice Admiral Momonga. Luffy, who was relaxing in the palace courtyard, stands up abruptly, the news igniting a spark of interest in his eyes. Smoker, is it? It's about time then. Let's get ready to receive them. Folks, let's wrap up our stay here in Alabasta. Let's prepare the Black Pearl and set sail as soon as we finish negotiations with the Navy. Everyone nodded, and began to prepare their things, taking them to the ship. Luffy, seeing this and always with a peculiar plan in mind, decides he needs a special memento of his victory in Alabasta. With a mischievous smile, he heads to some members of his crew still relaxing. Zoro, Hugo, and Usopp. Go to the prison and fetch Jinbai, Momonga, and Crocodile. Luffy suggests, and they do just that, while he began to pick up large logs from the castle's storage and buried them in front of the castle. "Hey, what is Straw Hat doing?" asked one of the guards looking at Luffy's strange action. "I don't know, they say he's quite peculiar," said another beside him. "So this is how a 200 million pirate behaves?" Another spoke. "Look, they had prisoners." One of them points to the ship with Zoro, Usopp, and Hugo taking 3 prisoners out. "It's just 2 7 warlords of the seas and 1 Navy vice admiral." Another speaks unconcerned. "What?" They scream alarmed. Who could say that Luffy had such important prisoners on that ship in the courtyard the whole time? They scream frightened. Luffy, ignoring the guards, waits for the prisoners to arrive at him. "What does this mean?" "Mugiwara. What a bad mood. I'm just going to take a picture with you. No need to be so grumpy, we are saying goodbye soon." Luffy informs, and before the 3 could react, Luffy activated his speed 40 times and quickly tied them to the posts. How did he do that so fast? Everyone shouted with a comical face. Luffy looked at all his crew and shouted, "Hey, guys. Let's take a photo in front of the palace. It's going to be an epic memento." The prisoners, although clearly displeased and reluctant, have no choice but to be part of Luffy's plan. "Hey, guard. Come here and take our picture." Luffy called one of the palace guards, who was stunned but eventually did it. "Hey, Luffy. Is this really necessary? This is going to cause us even more trouble." Nami complained. "Of course, it is. How are we going to remember this epic adventure without a picture with our trophies? I'll even make the whole world see it," he said with a mischievous smile. "Am I going to be famous?" Chopper shouted happily. "GRR." Laboon was also excited. "Wolf wolf. I don't think it's that kind of attention we're going to get." Kuina murmurs, but follows to the photo. Laughing and joking, the crew starts to gather for the photo. Some are excited about the idea, while others just shake their heads, accepting the antics of their captain. This is going to be interesting. Can't wait to see the face of the world government when this gets published. Zoro speaks. This is going to be an epic tale. The great Usopp and his companions capture 3 powerful enemies. Usopp exclaimed excitedly. Robin, with a slight smile, watches the scene. She would usually be afraid to do something like this, but Luffy has given her a sense of security since she met him. A peculiar memento, but certainly unforgettable. Finally, everyone is ready. The guard adjusts the camera and joins the group, while a prepared member of the crew presses the button. With a bright flash, the moment is captured forever with the photography Den Mushi. This will make the front page. The whole world will see how amazing we are. Luffy laughed loudly. The photo captures a unique moment full of distinct personalities. In the center, Luffy, with his mischievous and confident smile, stands with one arm raised as if celebrating his victory. On one side of him, Yamato poses proudly, her smile revealing the satisfaction of a well-fought battle. On the other side, Shirahoshi tries to smile, still a bit shy, with Megalo by her side. Zoro stands with a serious expression, but a slight smile betrays his pride, while Lami, next to him, displays a satisfied grin. Vippa looks happy to be included, and Chaochu, loyal as ever, sits beside him. Usopp is striking a heroic pose, trying to appear more imposing than he really feels. Nami, with a confident expression, is close to Reiju, who smiles calmly at the camera. Hugo, with his imposing physique, stands a bit behind, trying not to overshadow the others. Nojiko is next to Nami, sharing a warm smile with her sister. Hucky, with his tentacles, happily waves at the camera. Kuina, though young, stands with the firm posture of a swordsman, while Alvida, with her beauty and arrogance, poses seductively. Laboon tries to fit into the photo next to a cheerful Luffy. Vivi and crew are together, representing Alabasta with an air of gratitude. Nico Robin stands a bit apart, with a gentle smile and eyes reflecting the depth of her knowledge. Chopper, in his small form, seems excited to be included. Lastly, Broggy and Dory, the giant warriors, are kneeling to fit in the photo, each with an expression of contentment. Luffy made them grow to normal size with the intention of being more intimidating. In the lower center of the photo, right at the front, Jinbai, Crocodile, and Momonga are tied up and clearly displeased, but they are a crucial addition to the image Luffy wanted to create. They represent the victory and audacity of the Straw Hat Pirates. The result is a vibrant photo, full of energy and personality, a memento of their journey in Alabasta. After the photo, the Navy, led by Commodores, arrives at the castle with an imposing presence, determined to fight the pirate crew again. Smoker, with his characteristically stern expression, steps forward in the vanguard, his determination clear in every step. As soon as they arrived, the Marines were shocked to see their Vice Admiral Momonga and 27 warlords of the seas, notorious and feared figures, tied to imposing pillars in front of the castle. The scene provoked a mix of anger and disbelief. Damn pirates! How can they be so bold? One of them exclaimed, voice trembling with fury. Vice Admiral Momonga, a Commodore, with a face pale with concern, shouted, trying to understand the chaotic situation. Look, there are 27 warlords of the seas and not just Crocodile. Someone observed, pointing to the captive figures. The crowd of Marines fell silent for a moment, shocked by the revelation. WHT. Collective disbelief echoed through the air. That is Jinbai. How could he have become a prisoner too? The confusion and fear were palpable as they contemplated the legendary Triton 7 warlords of the seas, now imprisoned as a trophy. What will we do? It's more serious than we anticipated. Concern was stamped on each face as the gravity of their mission became apparent. Mujiwara. In the name of Navy justice, I demand that you release Vice Admiral Momonga and the 7 warlords of the seas immediately. Smoker, always imposing and unyielding, shouted with authority, his voice cutting through the tension like a sword. Luffy then appeared in front of all the Marines. He showed no concern for the Commodores and other ranks, the only one who really caught his attention was Smoker. With his usual confident smile, Luffy assessed Smoker, appearing surprisingly calm considering the volatile situation. All right, Smoker. I'll release Momonga. His casual response left the crew and the Marines present visibly surprised. Without hesitation and with a nonchalant posture, Luffy approached where Momonga was being held. With a casual gesture and an uninterested expression, he untied the Vice Admiral's bonds, almost as if he were performing a daily task. As Momonga falls from the pillar and stands up, still a bit surprised by the sudden change of events, Luffy pulls some papers out of his pocket and hands them to him. The papers seem official, with stamps and signatures. Here are some proofs that a certain 7 warlords of the seas was looking to take over a country. Momonga, regaining his composure, takes the papers and looks at Luffy with a mix of reluctance, but he does exactly that as he begins to read the papers the pirate handed him. The papers Luffy hands to Momonga are a detailed dossier, meticulously prepared by Robin. These documents contain information and irrefutable evidence of Crocodile's corrupt schemes and his actions against the people of Alabasta. Momonga, upon receiving the papers, frowns as he begins to leaf through the content. Each page reveals more about the extent of Crocodile's betrayal and manipulation. There are detailed reports, financial records, testimonies, and reports from Baroque Works agents, and even incriminating photographs. This is overly thorough. Crocodile was involved in more than we imagined. How did the Navy not see this before? He looks up at Crocodile still tied up, who watches Luffy with a look of hatred. This is frustrating, but also useful. Momonga was in great doubt about trying to capture Luffy, but thought it would be nearly impossible with Yamato here, even with the help of 27 warlords of the seas, but now he discovered that Crocodile is a criminal too. He might have the world government's approval for a lot of things, but this was too much. Sighing, Momonga had no choice. We from the Navy will investigate every detail. Crocodile won't escape justice this time. Luffy just smiles, pleased to have thrown a bit more chaos into the world and at the same time ensured the safety of Alabasta. Tell Sengoku that I'm doing this only because he paid the money that was demanded in Kokoyasi, otherwise this would be in the newspaper the next day. Now you can blame us and make them a hero. After all, that's how the Navy manipulates the news. Luffy openly mocked, leaving Momonga scowling, but he couldn't deny those words because that's how the newspaper would publish the news the next day. We demand that you hand over Crocodile and Jinbai. Momonga finally spoke. Well, Crocodile can be done, Jinbai, I still want to keep him until we leave Alabasta. Luffy shrugged and Momonga looked frustrated. Before handing Crocodile over to the Navy, Luffy, always unpredictable and cunning, approaches the defeated 7 warlords of the seas with a bold proposal. Hey, Crocodile, since you're out of a job now after being fired from the government, how about joining us? It's going to be more fun than rotting in Impel Down. Crocodile, surprised by the offer, looks at Luffy with a mix of disdain and resentment. The idea of joining the young pirate who defeated him is something he would never consider. You must be joking. I'd prefer 1,000 times the darkness of Impel Down than to sail under the flag of a kid like you. Mujiwara. Alright then. It was just an offer. See you around, Crocodile. Luffy shrugs and goes towards Jinbai to take him to the ship. Luffy, showing no sign of disappointment, hands Crocodile over to the Marines. With Jinbai still aboard and Crocodile handed over to the Navy, Luffy and his crew prepare to leave. Vice Admiral, are we really going to let them leave like this? A Marine asks Momonga, who now had his sword again after Luffy handed it over. We can't do anything with them, we have to take care of Crocodile's schemes too. If the news of this gets out from here, it'll be a hard blow for the Navy. He informs and they all start to move away. You managed to get out of here once more, Mugiwara. But the next time, I will capture you. Smoker growls. With everyone aboard, Luffy, instead of slowing down the ship, launches the nitro of the ship, making it take off from the courtyard of the ship to the desert heading east to finally leave the country. Luffy is on the deck, looking at the horizon with a smile on his face as the ship sails back through the sands. He's ready for the next adventure, to face new challenges, and to continue his journey to become the Emperor of the Sea. Chapter 156, World News 01. After a whole day of sailing from the sandy shores of Alabasta, the Black Pearl finds itself in the open waters of the ocean, a solitary point distant from any land. The crew, though tired from intense training, was vibrant, each member immersed in their tasks and hobbies, keeping the ship and their things laughing and chatting with each other. Luffy, standing at the bow, observes the sea ahead with a solemn gaze, nostalgic for the salty smell of the sea breeze after days of traveling the desert. His attention was abruptly diverted when a dark shadow began to grow alongside the ship. With a mix of surprise and calm, Luffy watched as the water around began to churn violently. Suddenly, with an explosion of foam, a huge sea monster emerged next to the Black Pearl. The creature, resembling a serpent covered in fur, with just its head being twice the size of the ship, rose menacingly, its eyes fixed on the crew. These monsters are getting stranger and stranger. Luffy murmured with his calm voice, finding the sea monster very strange. A sea king, the sea is so scary. Chopper shouted, visibly scared, while Vivi tried to calm her loyal duck crew, who was running frantically across the deck. Luffy, in a calm movement, turned to the rest of the crew. His gaze landed on Rachel, the pink-haired woman delivering refreshments to Kuina and Alvida. Hey, Rachel. How's our meat supply? He asked, seemingly unconcerned with the monster beside the ship. It's quite full, Luffy. She replied, surprised by the captain's calmness. Luffy nodded and then turned his attention to Shirahoshi, the princess beside Ecchi. Shira, want to send this Sea King away? Okay. Luffy-sama, I'll try the first way. Shirahoshi spoke timidly, her voice almost a whisper but determined. She began to move toward the Sea King, the imposing presence of the Sea King contrasting with the gentle nature of the mermaid. Everyone aboard the Black Pearl watched, a mix of fear and fascination, as the Sea Princess approached the monster. The Sea King glared furiously at Shirahoshi, questioning with its gaze why she dared to challenge it. The answer came in the form of a deafening roar. The sea monster expressed its fury and defiance with a roar that echoed through the air and made the waves around it churn violently. Shirahoshi turned to Luffy, a shadow of concern passing through her usually tranquil eyes. Luffy-sama? He doesn't want to obey? Should I use the second method? Her voice trembled slightly, indicating the gravity of the situation. Luffy, standing firm on the deck, nodded calmly. Yes, Shirahoshi. You can use the other method. I'm sorry. Sea King-sama. But... Shirahoshi began, but before she could finish her sentence, the monster lunged. In a quick and violent movement, the huge creature swallowed her in the air. A shocking silence took over the ship, a moment of pure horror and disbelief. Then, the silence was broken. She's been swallowed. Shirahoshi. Luffy, save her quickly. Nay. Princess Sama. The crew shouted in despair, their voices blending into a cacophony of fear and panic. But then, the unimaginable happened. Above the monster's head, an explosion of blood burst like a bomb. The Sea King stopped abruptly, its body trembling before becoming motionless. And then, to the shock and relief of all, Shirahoshi emerged through the hole she created in the creature's head, her hand coated in hockey. Sorry, Sea King-sama, but I had to deal with you like this. She murmured timidly, a blush of sadness on her cheeks. She just killed a Sea King. Some murmured, surprised by the unknown strength of Shirahoshi. The news that she dominated hockey was unknown to most, and her demonstration of power left everyone aboard in silent admiration. Damn, she's so ahead of me, I can't even do that. Zoro complained, realizing he was left behind by Shirahoshi. Even Luffy was showing greater talent than him. She's better than me too, Zoro. Luffy murmured. Hey, Rachel, can you find a spot in the fridge to put the monster's carcass? Luffy asks. TSK. I'll try to arrange it. She grumbles. Do you want me to shrink it? Luffy suggests. What for? If you get defeated, it'll destroy my kitchen. She growls at the thought. Alright then. Luffy murmurs and turns to Shirahoshi. Well done, Shira. You're getting stronger and stronger. Luffy celebrates. Thank you, Luffy-sama. She responded timidly and returned to the crew. Hey, a seagull delivering newspapers is approaching. Yamato comments and points to one side. Great, will I get my reward if the news comes out? Vippo asks excitedly. Let's see. Nami speaks and waits for the seagull to arrive. It didn't take long for it to appear and Nami to grab a newspaper. Well, it looks like we're on the front page again. Nami comments, looking at the photo and the headline title. Hey Luffy, how do you manage this? I thought this photo was exclusive to us. Nojiko asks beside him. I said I have a contact in the newspaper. Luffy declared, he always sends good photos to shock the world. The photo was the last one the whole crew took with 7 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral as trophies. Nami began to read the newspaper in her hands. The title read, Chaos in Alabasta. The unstoppable rise of Monkey D. Luffy's crew, capturing 7 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral challenging the power that the Navy and the world government so pride themselves on falling into the hands of a rookie pirate. Are we still talking about rookies who entered the Grand Line a month ago? Can anyone still stop the crew that plays with 7 warlords of the seas? In the article. In a shocking twist that is shaking the foundations of the known world, the crew of Monkey D. Luffy, already known for their daring feats and powerful connections, has catapulted themselves into the limelight once again. This time, the stage of their unbelievable feat was in the kingdom of Alabasta, a place already turbulent from its own internal struggles. What no one expected was that Luffy and his crew would leave such an indelible and dramatic mark. The news spread like wildfire. 7 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral of the Navy, revered and feared figures around the world, were captured and displayed simply as trophies by the Straw Hat crew. This feat is not just a testament to their growing strength but also a bold statement against the established authorities. But who is Monkey D. Luffy, this young captain who defies the world? Entering the Grand Line just a month ago, he's already challenging the world order, creating chaos wherever he goes. Luffy, with his confident smile, makes many wonder how far he will go. Will the sea change with his name? What do we expect in the future with his rising ascent? The capture of the 7 warlords of the seas and the vice admiral was not just a victory, it was a statement. The Straw Hat crew isn't just playing the game known as the Great Pirate Era, they're changing the rules. As the world reads this news with a mix of admiration and fear, one question hangs in the air: who, if any, can stop the meteoric rise of Monkey D. Luffy? As the world government and the Navy digest this humiliating defeat, the world watches, fascinated and terrified, to see what the future holds for this young pirate and his intrepid companions. Nami finished reading, and everyone fell silent. Now they were really at the center of the world. What they did was too big. That's quite exaggerated. Ha 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 ha. Morgan likes to cause chaos. Luffy was the first to break the silence, laughing at those somewhat forced news from the mind of the writer who did that, like he could really be everything that's written there, but his potential is too hidden for someone to declare. Firstly, that he's a double devil fruit. No one should know that. Luffy, take this seriously, we're in quite a bit of trouble here. Vivi reprimanded him. I want to see the wanted posters. Usopp shouted hopefully. Nami pulled behind the newspaper the new wanted posters and there was the crew. Monkey D. Luffy, 500 million Baileys, dead or alive. Roronoa Zoro, 80 million Baileys, dead or alive. Trafalgar D. Lamy, 100 million Baileys, dead or alive. Yamato, 150 million Baileys, dead or alive. Nami, 50 million Baileys, dead or alive. Shirahoshi, 5 million Baileys, only alive. Vippo, 30 million Baileys, dead or alive. Usopp, 25 million Baileys, dead or alive. Reiju, 80 million Baileys, dead or alive. Nojiko, 40 million Baileys, dead or alive. Ecchi, 15 million Baileys, dead or alive. Kuina, 40 million Baileys, dead or alive. Alvida, 20 million Baileys, dead or alive. Nico Robin, 79 million Baileys, dead or alive. Tony Chopper, 5 Baileys, dead or alive. Broggy and Dory, 100 million Baileys, dead or alive. Laboon, 5 Baileys, dead or alive. Hugo, 150 million Baileys, dead or alive. Chaochu, 100 million Baileys, dead or alive. After Nami revealed the wanted posters, a wave of reactions took over the deck of the Black Pearl. 500 million? Luffy exclaimed, his smile widening. Am I expensive, huh? Zoro, looking at his own poster with a value of 80 million, let out a grunt. Not bad, but I was expecting more after all this. Lamy, with a sly smile, commented on her 100 million reward. Looks like my skills are being recognized. Watch out, Luffy, I might overtake you. Yamato, observing his poster, seemed satisfied. 150 million. Not a bad reputation to start with. Nami, holding her 50 million poster, said relieved. They didn't change it this time, at least. Shirahoshi, with a shy expression, looked at her 5 million poster. I didn't want to cause trouble. 5 for Chopper? Is that a joke? Usopp laughed, despite his own value of 25 million. 5 Baileys? Chopper seemed shocked. Rachel, with an indifferent expression, observed her 80 million reward. Seems like I have to be more cautious now. Still, I'm 20 million below the Gothic woman. Nojiko looked at her 40 million poster and sighed. This is going to bring more trouble than I expected. Hucky, with his 15 million value, just smiled. I just want to make Takoyaki in peace. Kuina, with a determined expression, looked at her 40 million poster. This won't stop me from continuing my path. Alvida, as vain as ever, looked at her 20 million value. They must have forgotten to add a zero. Robin, with a mysterious smile, observed her 79 million poster. Seems like my bounty hasn't changed, besides associating me with Luffy and the others. Vippo, excited, asked about his reward. 25 million. My bounty. Broggy and Dory, the giant warriors, laughed together. 100 million is an honor for a warrior. Laboon, playing on the ship, had no idea of his value of 5 Baileys, but everyone laughed at the irony. Hugo, with his arms crossed, just nodded to his 150 million value. This is unexpected, but I haven't done anything. Chaochu, the valiant dog of 100 million, barked, clearly confused but liking that he was famous along with the others. Chapter 157, World News 02. Luffy, holding the newly received wanted posters, frowned as he pondered the bounties. This is strange. He murmured more to himself than to the others, but his voice was enough to draw Nojiko's attention. What is it, Luffy? Nojiko asked, approaching with a curious look. Luffy held up Hugo's poster. I can understand that Nami and Yamato didn't have a change, or that Vivi and crew aren't in the bounties because the Marines still believe Vivi is the princess of Alabasta. But what I find strange is Hugo's bounty. He didn't do anything to deserve 150 million. Hugo, who was close enough to hear, nodded with a thoughtful look. It's true, I just fought against some Marines and Baroque Works agents and... Wait. A sudden realization seemed to hit him. Luffy completed Hugo's line of thought. Exactly, they found out about our fight in the desert. Probably a rebel took a photo. It's very likely that our fight will appear in the newspaper tomorrow. 2 mythical devil fruit in the same crew like ours would certainly shock the world. Robin, who approached with her usual calmness, intervened. This will be worse for us. We already have a quite large amount of bounties on our heads. Her voice was soft. Luffy nodded in agreement. Yes, but we can't do anything anyway. Just strengthen ourselves to face whatever they send for us. His determination was clear. At that moment, Kuina, with her poster in hand, joined the group. And what will we do now? Her question was direct, reflecting the curiosity and anxiety of the entire crew. Luffy looked at his companions, a smile forming on his lips. You can enjoy and celebrate your bounties. We will have another feast without training this day to celebrate. His statement was met with a mix of relief and excitement. While many seemed happy, others, like Chopper, cried in a corner, complaining about their small bounties. The day passed with a great celebration, however, the tranquility lasted only one night. The next morning, shocking news from the newspaper rocked the ship. Luffy, with the newspaper in hand, laughed at the photo on the cover. It was him in his Ifrit form, immense and powerful, fighting the Titan in the Alabasta Desert. Even before growing to 200 meters, he was an impressive sight, a force of nature ablaze before the sand giant. However, the headline was what really caught attention, a crew with 2 mythical zones? Disagreements among the Straw Hat members, the kind of argument that shocks the world. How a fight between the captain and one of his members, Hugo, turned into a brawl between mythical creatures. The article detailed the battle in the desert, speculating on the reasons for the confrontation and describing with admiration and fear the powers of Luffy and Hugo. It talked about Luffy's transformation into Ifrit and how he demonstrated similar abilities in Logtown, in addition to trying to dissect the mysterious and fierce powers of Hugo. Don't believe everything you read, Luffy said with a smile, folding the newspaper. But it's good to know that they recognize our strength. The day passed with training this time, as they ignored the newspaper, expecting something like this, but the next day came what happened in Alabasta. However, the routine of training was interrupted the next day by more news from Alabasta. Luffy, holding the new newspaper, gathered the crew on deck to share the latest information. The main headline, Chaos in Alabasta, immediately captured everyone's attention. With a calm expression, Luffy began to read aloud. As soon as Luffy and his crew captured the Vice Admiral and 27 warlords of the seas, Luffy read, his voice amused. The Marines who were in the country gathered to fight the Straw Hats and rescue the prisoners. With the help of half a dozen Commodores and Smoker, they managed to free them. And along with all the Marines and 7 warlords of the seas, Justice managed to expel the Straw Hats from Alabasta. The crew listened in silence, some with somber expressions, others with defiant looks. The article painted a picture of an epic battle where the Marines, supposedly united in strength and purpose, had risen en masse to confront and, ultimately, repel the infamous pirates from their territory. Luffy paused for a moment, his eyes sweeping the crew before continuing. But not just that. He continued. Smoker discovered a greedy scheme of crocodile in the country, and they obtained evidence for the 7 warlords of the seas' criminal actions, arresting him and removing him from the organization. The news that it was Smoker who had unearthed and exposed Crocodile's nefarious plans in the country and obtained sufficient evidence to ensure his arrest and removal from the position of 7 warlords of the seas sounded like something straight out of a twisted fairy tale. What a lie. I didn't know that Marine would take all the credit. Vivi seemed dissatisfied and shook her head in disgust. How can they twist the truth like this? They can write whatever they want, he declared. But we know the truth. Also, don't judge Smoker like that, he's better than this. I'm sure he wouldn't agree with this if asked beforehand. Luffy commented, knowing how Smoker thought. It seems we are just villains now. Yamato commented curiously. Well, my dear, we're pirates and outlaws, we're never going to come out as heroes in the newspaper. Luffy said with a small smile. Shirahoshi, always the voice of innocence and justice, couldn't hide her disappointment. But that's unfair, she commented, her soft voice trembling with the strength of her emotions. The idea of being painted as villains, despite their good intentions and courageous actions, was hard to accept. Alvida, with her experience and hardened skepticism, cast an understanding glance toward the Sea Princess. The world is unfair, she commented. Luffy, sensing the need to shift focus, intervened with determination. Anyway, let's get back to training. This doesn't matter to us anymore. His voice was firm. In the spacious training room of the Black Pearl, the Straw Hat crew gathered in a semicircle around Luffy, who stood with a thick, ancient book in hand. Listen up, everyone, he began. Some of us have already started training with hockey, but now that most of you have learned sufficient techniques from the 6 styles and are just refining them, we're going to start developing hockey with you. Luffy opened the book, its pages filled with detailed notes and sketches that Luffy has been studying to learn in the best possible way. He continued. With the money I got from Crocodile's casino that's in our vault, there was something left to buy more equipment that might help you with these techniques. He gestured to a collection of newly acquired equipment arranged next to the room, special weights, headbands with insignias, attack machines, and other mysterious items, each designed to assist in the awakening and strengthening of hockey. I'll start the introduction for some of you. Luffy continued, his gaze sweeping the crew. The only ones who were training Conqueror's hockey are me and a few others who possess the Conqueror's hockey, but now it's time to train you like Usopp in observation hockey and Hugo in armament, for example. Usopp and Hugo, upon hearing their names, straightened up, nodding positively. Luffy then turned his attention to the newest members of the crew. The only ones who won't train yet will be the most recent, like Alvida, Robin, Vivi, Chopper, and others. His gentle eyes encouraged those mentioned. You will continue learning the 6 styles and familiarizing yourself with the basics. We all start from somewhere, and I'll be here to guide you. Thus, they continued in intense training, Luffy making discoveries with armament and Conqueror's hockey, the others trying to develop their own strengths, and others starting after hearing a lecture on each of the hackies. Luffy knew that by focusing on those with more affinities, they could easily develop and awaken even before the war with his training. After 3 days of sailing and intense training, Luffy, standing at the bow of the ship, gazed at the horizon with a contemplative look, sporting a thoughtful expression. He was aware that the world was vast and filled with wonders and dangers he had yet to encounter. Inspired by the desire to see more than the adventures he knew from stories and anime, he wanted to explore and discover more places he saw in the anime, so he made a decision to go to a new place before heading to Jaya, wanting to explore this sea further and see its wonders. Nami. What's nearby on the maps and eternal pose? Any cool place before we go to Jaya? Luffy went to Nami's cabin, who was drawing the topography of Alabasta at the moment. Nami heard her captain and put down her drawing, going to another table in her office to focus on her maps and nautical charts, looking at Luffy with a thoughtful expression. Let's see, she murmured, her fingers sliding over the paper, tracing routes and possibilities. Ah, here. She pointed to an area not too far from their current location. They call this island Luminarquia Fictitious Island. Nami began. It's known for its unbelievable wealth and natural beauty. They say the beaches are made of golden sand and that the trees have silver leaves. Luffy leaned over the map, his interest clearly piqued. Sounds interesting. Yes, but it's not just that. Nami continued, her gaze fixed on the map. The island is unique because of its main city, Sentilantia. It's built entirely on a huge crystal mountain that glows day and night. They say that at night, the entire city twinkles under the moon, as if stars had descended to the earth. But that's not all. Nami added, a sly smile forming. They say the island is so wealthy that even the most common coins are made of pure gold. Luffy's eyes lit up even more, and Nami, recognizing her captain's look, said, "You're going to loot the city, aren't you?" Luffy thumped the map with enthusiasm. "Depends. Let's go to Luminarquia." Luffy announced his plans to the crew right after. "Nojiko, what do you know about the island?" Nojiko, who was organizing some provisions in the corner, looked up upon hearing her name. She approached the map, looking intently at the point Nami had indicated. "Luminarquia, huh?" she murmured, her eyes reflective. "Yes, I've read some things about this island. Besides the beauty and wealth that Nami mentioned, Luminarquia is famous for a large auction that attracts people from all over the world. It's not an ordinary auction, it's known for trading rare and valuable items, many of which are linked to the underworld and black market." Nojiko paused, looking at the crew. "The auctions are held at the house of Sentilantia, in the heart of the city. They say the auction room is a spectacle in itself, with high crystal ceilings and jewel-encrusted walls. But what really draws attention are the items on offer. Rare items, slaves, and devil fruits." Robin, who was listening to the conversation, nodded in agreement. "Yes, the underworld has a strong presence in Luminarquia. It's a place where the beauty and wealth on the surface hide a much darker reality." Luffy, looking at the map. "A rich and dark place. Why do I like this? Because it's easier to steal?" Lami crossed her arms, "Because the captain's morals don't weigh as much when he's looting?" Reiju said, lighting a cigarette. "Hey, when did you two join forces to mock me?" Luffy raised an eyebrow. "We're just competing to see who speaks the truth about the captain." Lami shrugged. "TSK. Anyway, we're going to this place to participate in that auction. Pirates need to do things like this too. Our next stop is Luminarquia." Luffy smiled and declared. As the ship turned its course, the news about Luffy was still traveling the world one after the other in recent days. Chapter 158, World News 03. The news of the meteoric rise and exploits of Monkey D. Luffy and his Straw Hat crew spread like a gale, crossing all oceans and islands, reaching the most distant and unexpected places in the world. The stories of their adventures in Alabasta and beyond sparked a shockwave that reverberated around the globe, eliciting a variety of reactions among listeners. In a bustling port of a large commercial city in the South Blue, amidst the noise and bustle of merchants and sailors, news of Luffy circulated from mouth to mouth. "Have you heard about Straw Hat? He captured a vice admiral and 7 warlords of the seas on an island at the beginning of the Grand Line," exclaimed a sailor while unloading boxes from a ship. His colleagues paused for a moment, their expressions ranging from astonishment to disbelief. In such a world-connected city, the news of a rookie pirate so boldly defying the authorities was both terrifying and thrilling. In the same sea, in a small, unknown fishing village on a time-worn pier, a group of elderly fishermen examined the newspaper, their expressions varying between shock and admiration. "Look at this. That kid Luffy is turning the world upside down," commented one, his eyes wide behind foggy glasses. "Imagine, capturing a vice admiral and 7 warlords of the seas. What will become of us if he shows up here?" questioned another, fear clear in his voice. "Don't be foolish, he's on the Grand Line. Why would he come here?" exclaimed another elder. In a small village in the interior of a peaceful island in the West Blue, far from the chaos of the big centers, news of Luffy arrived more slowly but still made a significant impact. "They say he has the power to turn into a fire demon," commented an elder, sitting in the shade of a tree while children around listened with wide eyes. The stories of Luffy and his crew turned into legends, inspiring both fear and admiration in the villagers' hearts. In a bustling market on a commercial island, merchants and buyers bustled among stalls of exotic fruits and colorful fabrics, but conversations were dominated by a single topic. "Luffy, the Straw Hat. Is he really going to bring changes to the world?" questioned a merchant as he passed oranges to a customer. "Who knows? But one thing is certain, he is causing quite a stir," responded the customer, their eyes quickly scanning the newspaper they held. In a marine academy somewhere in the North Blue, even among those who swore to defeat piracy, stories of Luffy caused a frenzy. "Have you heard? He's got a bounty of 500 million now," said a young recruit, his eyes glowing with a mix of fear and excitement. "Will we ever have to face him?" questioned another, the idea of pursuing such a notorious pirate both terrifying and exhilarating. In a tavern on the sea on a winter island, rough and fierce pirates gathered around wooden tables, drinking and discussing the latest news. You heard? That kid Luffy is making waves. They say he even captured Jinbai and Crocodile as a trophy. Said one, a crooked smile on his face. That's insanity. Those Grand Line pirates are on another level. Responded another, his face somber in the candlelight. In a gloomy pirate den somewhere on the Grand Line, even among the most feared and respected pirates in the world, Luffy's actions caused unrest. This kid is causing too much trouble. Maybe it's time someone showed him how things work around here. Growled a notoriously cruel pirate, as his companions murmured in agreement. Luffy's feats challenged not only the Navy and the world government but also stirred the delicate balance of power among the pirates themselves. In an isolated mountainous village on the same sea. Did you see this, Mom? A young boy ran up to his mother, holding a worn newspaper. This pirate Luffy is doing incredible things. The mother, a woman with a gentle face and hands calloused from work, looked at the newspaper and sighed. Pirates will always be pirates. I hope he doesn't bring trouble to our village. Around the world, in taverns and halls, in markets and palaces, news of Luffy and his companions traveled fast and provoked a myriad of reactions. Some saw him as a hero, a symbol of freedom and defiance against oppressive power. Others saw him as a threat, a danger that needed to be eliminated. Regardless of how people perceived him. In the East Blue, a sea previously known for its relative calm compared to the imminent dangers of the Grand Line, it had caught the world's attention thanks to the actions of a young pirate. However, things calmed down as soon as the same pirate entered the Grand Line, but what people didn't expect was how Luffy's actions would mark the world once again, and the East Blue was in a frenzy at that moment. Monkey D. Luffy's recent actions in Alabasta, along with his previous exploits, shook the region to its core. Every town, village, and port was in uproar with the news that arrived, with each new report adding more fuel to the fire of speculation and rumors. In Logtown, the city of the beginning and end of pirates, was especially agitated. It was as if Luffy's very essence had permeated the air since his last destructive visit. He challenged the Navy and the world government right here, shouted that he would dominate the seas where Gul D. Roger was executed. Exclaimed a local citizen to a group of newcomers, pointing to where the platform was. The site was still under reconstruction since the Battle of Garp, Dragon, and Luffy. And now, he's captured a Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas in Alabasta. People around shook their heads in disbelief, murmuring about the audacious young pirate who had begun his journey right there. In the same town, in a more secluded place, where the streets still whispered about Monkey D. Luffy's legendary departure, one man, in particular, was agitated with almost religious fervor. Bartolomeo, a pirate whose respect for Luffy already bordered on adoration, was in the midst of establishing the first and, as far as he knew, the only fan club dedicated to the pirate. The news from Alabasta only intensified his devotion and fascination. Bartolomeo had transformed a corner of Logtown into a shrine dedicated to Luffy. Posters, newspaper clippings, and even drawings made by himself covered the walls with the members of the crew. Every new feat of Luffy was added with palpable excitement and even had Luffy's routes. Look at this. Luffy Senpai captured a Vice Admiral and 7 warlords of the seas. He's amazing. He's the greatest of all. Bartolomeo exclaimed to anyone who passed by, showing the latest edition of the newspaper with an almost manic gleam in his eyes. Around him, other pirates and citizens of Logtown watched with a mix of curiosity and caution. Some thought he was crazy, others were secretly attracted to the idea of such a powerful and defiant hero as Luffy. Bartolomeo spent hours talking about Luffy's adventures, describing each fight, each escape as if they were sacred. He debated theories about Luffy's next moves and argued fervently with anyone who dared to diminish the feats of his idol. As news of his fan club spread, other fans of Luffy, though not as fervent as Bartolomeo, began to join. The place became a meeting point for those fascinated by the pirate who defied the world. In the kingdom of Goa, where injustice once prevailed, the population was still recovering from the shock of the king's assassination and the subsequent destruction. Luffy's actions, though violent, made the kingdom begin to progress with alliances with other islands, something that had not happened before, and trade increased significantly because of it. Now, with the news of his exploits in Alabasta, many wondered if Luffy was a hero or a villain. He killed the king and now he's challenging the whole world. Commented a pompous citizen of Goa, oscillating between admiration and terror. The people of Goa lived discussing in the middle of the city. Meanwhile, an unusual and recurring situation worried the kingdom's ministers. Their queen, Makino, a woman of free spirit and kindness, had the peculiar habit of escaping the palace to work in a bar in Foushaf village, a small community on the other side of the island. This practice, although known by many, never ceased to surprise and frustrate the high-ranking members of the kingdom. On a typical day, the ministers, dressed in their formal attire and expressions laden with concern, traversed the village in search of their queen. The streets of Fuji village were full of life and colors, with citizens going about their daily tasks, oblivious to the frantic search of the ministers. Upon arriving at the bar where Makino worked, the ministers encountered a scene they had witnessed countless times before: the queen, dressed in a simple apron, serving customers with a welcoming and genuine smile. "Your Majesty, please, we implore you to return to the palace. It is unbecoming of a queen to behave in this manner," pleaded the oldest minister, his voice trembling with the urgency of the situation. Makino, turning to face her ministers with a calm smile, replied, "I understand your concerns, but this place brings me peace. Here, I am just Makino, not the queen. People treat me as an equal, and that's all I want at the moment." As the ministers continued to plead, Makino noticed a stack of newspapers in the corner of the bar. Curiously, she approached and picked up the latest edition, her eyes immediately finding the headlines about Luffy and his feats in Alabasta. Her face lit up with an even broader smile. "Look at this. Luffy is causing a big stir again," exclaimed Makino, clearly proud and joyful. "He's always been so brave and determined. It's wonderful to see how much he's grown. Luffy, you're shaming the village, I mean. Shaming the entire kingdom," shouted one of the ministers, none other than Whoop Slap dressed in an elegant suit. Resigned, the ministers sat at the bar, deciding to take a brief rest. Makino served them drinks and continued to talk about the news, sharing stories of Luffy when he was younger with her new group of customers. At the naval bases in the East Blue, the atmosphere was tense and urgent. The officers and soldiers were on high alert, Luffy's past actions in the East Blue still fresh in their memories. "He destroyed 2 of our bases and killed 2 commanders," murmured a young recruit, looking out to sea with apprehension. "And now he's doing the same in other seas." The atmosphere was intense. "Stop this gloom, we are justice. We must fight against evil, otherwise, it will always rain," said an officer. "Yes, we are justice," all the recruits shouted, gaining new ambition to fight against pirates and evil on the seas. Among the pirates and criminals of the East Blue, there was a mix of respect, envy, and fear. Luffy had done what many dreamed of but never dared to try. "Does he really think he can challenge the entire world?" questioned a veteran pirate, drinking in a gloomy tavern. "He represents the East Blue, he is one of us, a true pirate," exclaimed another, raising his drink in a toast to the young man who was turning the world upside down. "As if we could do something like that," another mocked without joining the celebration. Throughout the East Blue, stories of Luffy circulated with impressive speed, each new narrative increasing his reputation as a figure of immense power and courage. His acts of defiance and freedom instilled fear in the hearts of his enemies and inspired those who dreamed of following their own paths. For better or for worse, Luffy had left an indelible mark on the East Blue, and the waves of his actions would continue to spread for a long time. Chapter 159, World News 04. The news about Luffy didn't stop, and more parts of the East Blue woke up in recent days to them. In Kokoyasi village, the news of Luffy and his crew's feats caused a significant stir among the villagers, especially in the mayor's office, which was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Genzo stood, holding the latest editions of the newspapers, his hands trembling with the revelation of the new bounties. Now Nami wasn't the only one, Nojiko had earned her own bounty. 50 million for Nami and now 40 million for Nojiko? This boy is going crazy. He better take good care of them, he yelled, his voice echoing through the walls of the office. The news quickly spread through the streets of Kokoyasi, with villagers gathering in small groups to discuss the matter. Many shared the shock and concern of the mayor, but there was a subliminal sense of pride. Despite being considered dangerous criminals by the rest of the world, this village had only improved since the arrival of these pirates. Kokoyasi was transforming, partly thanks to Luffy's planning. With a billion Baileys obtained from the navy, people had invested in the village and the new city. New buildings were being constructed, and the port, once an area destroyed by the fight between Luffy and Nami, was turning into a breathtaking city and structure. Merchants from faraway places began to visit, attracted by the stories of a small village becoming an important spot on the map. These kids. They cause nothing but trouble. But those are our girls. Luffy, you are a pirate, a criminal in the eyes of the world, but please, protect them. The mayor murmured to himself, looking towards the horizon where the sea met the sky. In the quiet Syrup village, which was slowly transforming into a prosperous town thanks to financial aid from the Goa Kingdom and contributions from Kea herself, the news of Usopp's new bounty caused considerable stir. The streets were busier than usual, with residents commenting on the latest development involving the local hero. Kea, walking through the town accompanied by her butler, Mary, discussed the recent news as they headed towards the clinic she had made, as her dream was to be a doctor. 25 million Baileys, Ms. Kea. It seems Mr. Usopp is becoming quite famous. The butler commented, holding an edition of the newspaper that highlighted Usopp's bounty. Kea sighed, a mix of worry and pride on her face. Yes, I saw. Usopp always dreamed of being a brave warrior of the seas. It seems he is achieving his dream. She looked at Usopp's picture in the newspaper, a nostalgic expression on her face. They call him the deadly weapon of the Straw Hats now, continued the butler. They say his precision and skills are unmatched. He's truly become someone extraordinary. Kaya smiled faintly. Yes, I hope he's safe and happy while following his dream. As they walked through the streets, it was evident that Syrup Village was thriving. New constructions were underway, and the local economy was more robust, diversifying what was once the island's only business, boat building from Kaya's family. Now with merchants and travelers visiting more frequently, the place seemed much happier. Ms. Kaya, I believe Mr. Usopp is following his dream as best he can. He always wanted to be recognized as a brave warrior. Now, the whole world knows his name, said the butler with a smile. Kaya nodded, looking around at the growing town. Yes, you're right. Usopp is living the adventure he always wanted. I can't fall behind either, I will follow my own ambitions. The village didn't lag behind. Despite Usopp always having a bad reputation among the villagers, seeing him in the newspaper as a powerful sharpshooter worth 25 million was something everyone cheerfully talked about and said they always expected this from the boy, that he had a future. At the famous floating restaurant Barati, known for attracting a diverse crowd from sailors to pirates, the chefs were more excited than usual. The vibrant and joyful energy filled the kitchen as they prepared exotic and delicious dishes. The reason for such effervescence was not a new dish or a famous client but rather the recent news about a regular at the restaurant, Reiju. Have you seen this? Reiju now has a bounty of 80 million Baileys, exclaimed one of the chefs, holding a newspaper featuring Reiju's image. I knew that girl would go far, commented another, skillfully chopping vegetables. Ha 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 ha. Are Reiju becoming so famous? I'm so proud. Patty started to cry. Chef Zeph looked at the newspaper with bright eyes. She always had adventurous spirit. Seems like she's found companions who share the same. Zeph remarked, a paternal and subtle smile appearing on his stern face. Back in Logtown, a couple of merchants were particularly happy while reading the latest news about Monkey D. Luffy's feats. They were in one of their stores, which had started to become a chain of branches throughout the city, selling a variety of goods, from basic foodstuffs to small maritime artifacts. Jerngon Maribisa, Jorah Alagan. Luffy is causing Iroh the Ruckus save his Arlie, said the woman, holding the newspaper discussing the pirate's latest feats. Her husband glanced over the counter where he was organizing some items. That kid really doesn't know how to stay quiet, does he? But somehow, this doesn't surprise me. He always causes a stir, wherever he goes. Somewhere at the entrance of the Grand Line, the infamous clown pirate Buggy was aboard his ship, surrounded by his colorful and disorganized crew. He held a crumpled newspaper in one hand and a map in the other, his expression a volatile mix of anger and determination. That damned Luffy. He thinks he can just keep causing trouble around and be impervious to the mighty Buggy's wrath? I'll show him. Buggy roared, throwing the newspaper to the floor. His eyes were bloodshot, and his cheeks puffed up in fury. His crew members exchanged nervous glances. They were accustomed to Buggy's fits of rage, but the idea of hunting someone like Luffy, who was now notorious around the world, was another story. Captain Buggy, started one of the crew, a skinny man with a hat far too big for his head. Are you sure we can handle those monsters that appear in the newspapers? I mean, Luffy has those mythical creatures and all. The other crew members murmured in agreement, looking anxiously towards Buggy, waiting for his reaction. They had seen the images in the newspaper, immense and powerful creatures fighting one another, one of them being Monkey D. Luffy himself, and the idea of facing them was daunting. Buggy spun around, his cape flying dramatically as he pointed at the crew member who spoke. Of course, we can. Are you doubting the great Buggy? I've faced that brat before, and he's nothing I can't handle again. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. They respected and feared Buggy, but the growing reputation of Luffy and his crew made them question whether it was really a good idea. As Buggy's ship sailed towards unknown danger, the crew members silently wondered what the future held for them. In an elegant and imposing mansion in the North Blue, the Vinsmoke family was gathered in one of the sumptuous rooms, with decor reflecting both their power and wealth. They were a lineage of renown, known for their involvement in political and military affairs in this sea. However, at that moment, everyone's attention was focused on a newspaper resting on the marble table. The patriarchal figure of the family, Judge Vinsmoke, a tall and imposing man with blonde hair and a severe expression, held the newspaper firmly. His eyes, usually cold and calculating, displayed a rare spark of emotion as he looked at a specific image on the page, a young woman with curly eyebrows and pink hair. It's her. Reiju, he murmured, almost to himself, but loud enough for the others in the room to hear. Around him, his other sons, all men of tough and determined appearance, moved closer to get a better look at the image. "She's alive. I can't believe it," said one of them, his voice mixing surprise. They had long believed Reiju was dead. Judge placed the newspaper carefully on the table, his mind working rapidly as he considered the implications of this discovery. He stood up, his expression stern. "I'm going to make some calls. We need more information, and then we'll decide what to do." As Judge retreated to his office, the other members of the Vinsmoke family exchanged emotionless glances. In a small, tall house overlooking the sea on a distant island, a young girl was sitting alone in a room lit by sunlight, holding a crumpled newspaper in her trembling hands, her eyes fixed on an image that seemed to capture all her attention and emotion. It was a photo of Monkey D. Luffy, the notorious pirate who was now the center of conversations worldwide. The girl, with long hair of two colors falling over her shoulders, began to sing softly. Her voice was sweet but laden with sadness and longing. The melody she sang was like an ancient lullaby, one that spoke of separation and tragedy. "Luffy," she murmured, the words barely more than a whisper. Tears began to form in her eyes, reflecting against the day's sun, as she continued to look at the image in the newspaper. The tears now ran freely, marking the paper with damp spots. She held the newspaper as if it were a precious treasure, a fragile but essential bond with the person she clearly missed. The sadness in her tone was palpable, a mix of love, loss, and a deep desire for reunion. She rocked herself slightly back and forth, as if the movement could somehow ease the pain in her heart. News was still being spread all over the world, not just iconic figures, but many ordinary people dealing with the new newspapers. In a bustling tavern on an East Blue island, customers gathered around a table looked at the newspaper with wide eyes and expressions of shock. "Are you seeing this?" exclaimed a middle-aged man, pointing at the headline announcing Luffy's 500 million Bailey's bounty. "A rookie doing all this? In Alabasta, no less." In the central square of a town in the North Blue, a group of children reenacted Luffy's epic battles, each wanting to be the fearless captain of the Straw Hats. "I'm Luffy," yelled one boy, jumping off a bench. "No, I'm Luffy," retorted another, brandishing a stick as if it were a sword. In a busy port of the West Blue, merchants and sailors discussed the news, some in fear, others in admiration. "Did you hear? They say he can transform into some kind of demon," said a sailor, looking nervously at the sea. "Nonsense," replied a merchant. On a peaceful island in the South Blue, an elderly woman sighed as she read the newspaper. "Oh, these young pirates today," she murmured, shaking her head. "In my time, they weren't so bold. Or so dangerous." Her grandson, sitting at her feet, looked up, his eyes full of admiration and curiosity. "Grandma, do you think that Monkey D. Luffy will be the next pirate king?" In the streets of an island in the Grand Line, the news of Luffy and his deeds caused a frenzy. In a crowded market, vendors seized the opportunity to sell Straw Hat-themed merchandise. "Get your straw hat here, just like the future pirate king," yelled a street vendor, as a crowd gathered around his stall. In a Marine headquarters facility, officers gathered in a meeting room, the tension palpable. "How did we let this happen right under our noses?" questioned a vice admiral, his expression serious. "He's just a rookie, but he's making the world government look like a fool," added another, his face red with anger. On an unknown island, a group of veteran pirates raised glasses in a toast. "To Luffy," they shouted, the drink foaming and overflowing. "He may be a rookie, but he's already causing more trouble than many of us combined," laughed the captain, his gaze wild and joyous. Across the world, from small villages to large cities, in taverns, markets, marine bases, and lonely ships on the vast sea, the news about Luffy and his Straw Hat crew spread like wildfire, stirring fear, admiration, discussions, and dreams. The world was watching, and everyone wondered the same thing: what would this young pirate do next? But of course, it wasn't just iconic people and ordinary citizens. Now all the most powerful figures in the world had their newspaper in front of them, looking attentively at the headline with interest. Chapter 160, World News 05. While ordinary people and acquaintances of Luffy were attentive to his news, the eyes of the most influential people and even more iconic individuals were on the newspapers of recent days. Especially when those eyes belonged to the end of the first part of the Grand Line and the New World. In one of the strongest and most respected bastions of the Navy, known as Marineford, one figure stood out among the other recruits, sweating and striving under the merciless sun while her body stretched in the midst of training. This figure was quite famous among everyone in this place, in addition to being the notable granddaughter of the hero Garp, and her quite iconic and silly nature. Monkey D. Lucy was a beauty in everyone's eyes, but the girl seemed oblivious to it, as she only had one thought at that moment. She was a young and determined sailor, whose eyes burned with a flame of determination and ambition. With each precise and powerful movement, she demonstrated not only her physical ability but also her iron will under her grandfather's training. "Come on, Lucy, you can do better than that." This voice belonged to none other than Zephyr, who came to Marineford a few days ago and did Garp the favor of training his granddaughter with the 6 styles. "Yes, instructor," Lucy said determinedly, using Soru, as her body turned a red tone and steam came out of her all the time. She had developed a technique called Gear 2 by learning instant transmission. "You have developed your fruit well, keep it up, and in the future, you might become a big name in the Navy like your grandfather," Zephyr commented, fiddling with his dark glasses. Lucy stopped training and went to the side to wipe the sweat from the workout. Some sailors came to her side with the newspaper. "Lucy, have you seen today's newspaper? More news about your brother," he exclaimed, extending the newspaper to her. She had received news in the last 2 days about Luffy in Alabasta. The headlines screamed about Luffy's recent exploits and his impact on Alabasta. A photo of Luffy, with his iconic straw hat and a confident smile, occupied most of the page for the last 3 days. Lucy took the newspaper and her eyes quickly scanned the words. Her heart was pounding, not just because of the training, but also because of the mix of emotions the news of her brother evoked in her. Pride, frustration, determination, all these feelings intertwined within her. The sailors managed to save Vice Admiral Momonga, and they drove the pirates out of Alabasta. Not to mention that Captain Smoker discovered a shocking scheme by Crocodile. The sailor exclaimed with today's news. With a determined sigh, she folded the newspaper and handed it back to her colleague. "Yes, I saw. And that only tells me one thing, with Luffy still out there," she began, her eyes shining with unwavering resolve. "As a sailor, I will find Luffy. And not only that, I will become stronger than him. I will surpass him and bring him to justice." She was determined. Her colleague watched her, impressed and a bit intimidated by her conviction. Lucy then returned to her training with renewed energy, each strike and movement reflecting her promise to herself. She wasn't just seeking to capture her brother, she aimed to prove herself, to show that she could match him. Lately, Lucy felt much weaker than her brother. She loved him, but being left behind was a bad feeling. And while Lucy trained, in an office on the other side of Marineford, in a spacious and well-organized office within the Navy headquarters, the legendary Vice Admiral Garp, known as the hero of the Navy, sat behind his desk, with a mischievous smile on his face as he read the latest newspaper. "What nonsense, Luffy wouldn't be defeated after what he caused. This is just a smokescreen," he murmured, looking at the newspaper. The news about the chaos in Alabasta and the exploits of a certain straw-hatted pirate dominated the headlines, but what really caught Garp's attention was the mention of the increase in the bounty of his grandson, Monkey D. Luffy, and his impressive transformation into Ifrit. Garp let out a thunderous laugh, echoing through the walls of the office and probably down the nearby corridors. He shook his head, amused and at the same time impressed by Luffy's antics. 500 million, huh? That boy really knows how to play pirate, he commented to himself, a proud twinkle in his eyes. Colleagues and subordinates passing by the corridor outside the office could hear Garp's laughter and weren't quite sure of the source of the good humor. But this was a familiar scene for them. Garp, despite being a symbol of justice and strength in the Navy, always had a peculiar reaction when it came to his notorious grandson. Suddenly, the door opened, and a younger officer entered, holding more documents and reports. He glanced at Garp, who was still laughing and shaking the newspaper in the air. "Vice Admiral Garp, sir, I have..." he began but was interrupted by another burst of laughter from Garp. "Ah, sorry, it's just my little grandson again doing his crazy things," Garp said, trying to contain his amusement. "Did you see this? My grandson is now worth 500 million and apparently can transform into a fire demon or something of the sort. Ah, this kid is going to give me a heart attack one of these days. Boo-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. The young man wasn't quite sure what to say in front of the Vice Admiral acting this way. He would be severely reprimanded by Sengoku if he saw this scene, family or not. Garp was celebrating a pirate causing so much trouble. Garp finally calmed down and looked at the papers, the amused expression giving way to seriousness. "Ah, sorry about that, was just practicing for when I meet my grandson, you understand? Vice Admiral Garp. Did you get that? I was just practicing and not celebrating my grandson being a 500 million criminal?" Garp looked at him with serious eyes, causing the sailor to start sweating. "I understood. I saw you just practicing, not celebrating Monkey D. Luffy's bounty." He finally spoke. "That's good. Now give me those papers." Boo-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Garp replaced seriousness with his iconic laughter. And with that, Garp returned to his work, but the smile remained on his face. On an island with bubbles constantly rising in the air, A man with silver hair and a sharp gaze was sitting in a rustic bar. Silver's Rayleigh, the legendary Dark King, former first mate of Pirate King Goldie Roger, held the latest newspaper in his hands, his face lit up with an expression of interest and amusement. After all he's done, the Navy suddenly manages to detain them with just a few commodores and a captain? He commented with a smile at the newspaper. That's clearly to avoid saying the Navy lost to a rookie to the masses, but I'm surprised how this Luffy boy captured 2 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral. This is really unprecedented. Shaki approached, holding her cigarette. This kid really keeps surprising me, he murmured. What else is he going to do until he gets here? What do you think, Ray? Shaki asked, placing a new bottle of sake on the table. I don't know when, but I feel this kid is going to do a lot in this sea before landing on this island. It's going to be very interesting. His bounty now is 500 million. In just 1 month in the first part of the Grand Line, he became the... He broke into a smile. Elsewhere, below the water, in the magnificent and mysterious Fishman Island, located in the depths of the ocean, King Neptune was with a forehead mixed with concern and disbelief. What's this? Murmured Neptune, holding the newspaper with his large, calloused hands. The photo showed his daughter, Princess Shirahoshi, alongside a group of infamous pirates, led by none other than Monkey D. Luffy. Worse yet, the newspaper indicated that even Jimbai, who he had sent to rescue his daughter from the humans, had been captured and displayed as a trophy. Neptune felt a mix of anger and concern. How did Shirahoshi get involved with these pirates? And Jimbai, captured? This is unacceptable. He was used to dealing with state matters and internal threats, but seeing his daughter directly involved with such dangers was something he never expected to face, let alone how things unfolded. Sister. The brothers had worried expressions about the youngest as they also looked at the newspaper next to their father. Send a message to Whitebeard, ordered Neptune. We need to know what to do in a situation like this and how to deal with the Straw Hats. Somewhere in the vast ocean, on the ship of 4 Emperors Whitebeard, the crew was gathered, each holding a copy of the same newspaper that had reached Neptune's hands. The atmosphere was charged, irritation and disbelief evident on the faces of the crew. How dare they capture Jimbai and treat him like a trophy? Exclaimed Marco, the commander of the 1st Division, his expression a mix of fury and concern. Whitebeard, or Edward Newgate, a giant among men, sat calmly, an open newspaper in his hands. He looked at the picture with a thoughtful expression, the smoke from his cigar rising in spirals. Luffy, huh? That kid really has no limits. Around him, the crew discussed fervently, some clamoring for vengeance, others trying to understand the situation better before acting. Whitebeard knew he needed to make a decision, but he also knew that hasty actions could lead to disastrous consequences. Ace. What is your brother doing? They opened a call with Ace's Den Mushi. Well. I'm also surprised by him, but Luffy won't harm Jimbai. The news is false. Probably Luffy is still with Jimbai on his ship and he assured me that he would release him in the middle of the sea without harming him. Ace spoke calmly on the Den Mushi. I hope you're right, Ace, said one of the commanders. Meanwhile, on a laid-back island where joy and party seemed to be the norm, Shanks, the red-haired 4 Emperors Zoo, was sitting with his crew on the beach of the island with several stocks of drinks, with an amused smile on his face as he read the same newspaper. Around him, the crew laughed and joked, but all eyes were turned to the captain, waiting for his reaction. Ha! Luffy, you really know how to make an impression, said Shanks, laughing. Capturing Jimbai, Crocodile, and Momonga and causing all this uproar. You're playing a dangerous game. Ha 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 ha. Look at this crew that the boy managed to get, this Hugo can transform into a colossal monster. That seems dangerous. One of Shanks' commanders commented. Let's see how far you go, Luffy, murmured Shanks, a glint of expectation in his eyes. He raised his drink in a silent toast to the young pirate and his feats, knowing that, one way or another, the world was about to be shaken. On a remote island, known only by a few and feared by many, Big Mom sat on her luxuriously adorned throne. Her eyes, filled with cunning and ambition, shone with peculiar interest as she leafed through the newly arrived newspaper. Interesting, I hated seeing that boy in the newspaper, but now things are getting quite amusing, she murmured, her voice resonating with power and authority through the grand hall. Around her, her subordinates and children waited in silence. Monkey D. Luffy. A bold young pirate with a bounty of 500 million and not 1, but 2 mythical zone devil fruit users in his crew. This could be useful for me, she pondered, a sly smile forming on her lips. Meanwhile, in an imposing place known as Onigashima, Kaido was visibly shaken. The news in the newspaper had hit him like a blow, not because of Luffy's bounty, but because of the revelation of 2 mythical zones in his crew. Both those fire lizards and the stone giant. Kaido murmured, the cup of sake in his hand trembling slightly. Kaido stood up, his dominant presence filling the room. 2 mythical zones. This cannot be ignored, it's perfect for my crew, they might even become disasters. I want them. Tell Jack to capture them immediately. He shouted, and his subordinates rushed to make a call to Jack. In paradise, Jack received the call. Yes, we'll do that. Let's head to the beginning of the Grand Line. He gave the order. Back to Manafort, the fortress of the Navy and bastion of justice, an atmosphere of tension and urgency dominated the large meeting hall. Seated at the head of the long and imposing table was Sengoku, the respected and feared leader of the Navy. At his signal, high-ranking officers and prominent figures from the organization gathered, each aware of the gravity of the moment. Gentlemen, he began, his voice resonating with authority through the hall. We are faced with a growing threat that cannot be ignored. Monkey D. Luffy and his crew are proving to be more than mere Ecchi pirates. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Around the table, the faces of the officers reflected a mix of concern and determination. Kyuzen has already departed to deal with this threat. Continued Sengoku. But we must be prepared to take additional measures. Luffy has already shown he has the capacity to directly challenge the Navy and the world government. The hall remained silent. It is imperative that he be contained before reaching the New World. There, the alliances he could form and the chaos he could cause are unpredictable and potentially devastating if he grows. Garp's grandson is becoming more and more dangerous, scary. Damn pirates, we must eliminate them all. I will contact the remaining 7 warlords of the seas. They must be aware of the danger Luffy represents and be prepared to act. And I want all of you to be ready to act against this rookie. Sengoku looked at the admirals and vice admirals present. With the meeting concluded, Sengoku headed to his office. Sitting in front of the Den Mushi, he began making the necessary calls. Fufu. You're quite worried about a rookie, Sengoku. TSK. You think I'll lose to a pirate who just entered the Grand Line? Just one man, all fall before me. These youngsters are growing fast, I'm really interested where Roronoa Zoro might reach. All the 7 warlords of the seas responded in their unique way. Damn arrogant ones. Sengoku growled, but he couldn't say much. Meanwhile, an even more important meeting was taking place. In the sacred heart of Mary Ijos, the city that shines above the rest of the world, 5 venerable figures gathered in a luxurious room, whose walls were covered with tapestries depicting the long and dark history of the world government. They were the Gorosei, the 5 elders, the true powers behind the highest commands of the world by the world government, their words shaping the fate of nations and individuals. Monkey D. Luffy. Began one of them, his voice as ancient as time. This name has been a constant in our discussions. The news of his exploits in Alabasta and the capture of a vice-admiral and 2 7 warlords of the seas are disturbing. Yes. Agreed another, adjusting his glasses. He is not just an ordinary pirate. With the strength and influence he has demonstrated and his devil fruit, it's clear that Luffy and his crew are rapidly becoming a significant threat to the world's balance. We must also consider the presence of 2 mythical zones in his crew besides the captain. Momonga reported that the crew's dog has a mythical zone as well along with that Hugo. Added a 3rd elder, his voice stiff and cold. This is not a coincidence or a minor feat. They have the potential to cause major disruption. We cannot allow them to continue unchecked. Their influence is growing, and if we don't act now, it might be too late. Said a 4th. The 5th elder, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. So it's decided. We must employ a more dire measure to deal with this emerging threat. It's time to send one of our sacred knights. We don't even do this to fight against a 4 Emperor Su and his crew, but Luffy is beyond being just a son of the Tenri Obito assassin, he might even be the cause of their death, and we are pointing to the wrong side. Said another with a serious face. The other elders nodded in agreement. Sending one of the sacred knights seemed reasonable. With this, they didn't call the Cypher Pol Zero agent as they usually did, but a group even more dangerous than the Cypher Pol could represent. Chapter 161, Luminarchy 01. As the Black Pearl approached Luminarchy, some members of the Straw Hats crew, the most eager for new sights, gathered on the deck, observing the island emerging on the horizon. The island shone under the sun, reflecting light on its golden sandy beaches and silver-leaved trees, creating a dazzling spectacle that left everyone on board awestruck. This is amazing! Exclaimed Usopp, his eyes wide with admiration. Nay. Let's see what this island has to offer. Said Ecchi, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. As the crew prepared to anchor while the island got closer and closer, Luffy headed to the ship's prison, where Jinbai was detained. Mugiwara-chan. Bon Clay shouted excitedly as always when Luffy appears in the prison. Good morning my friend, how are you? Luffy greeted. I'm fine, Mugiwara-chan called me a friend. What joy. He began to dance ballet. Hey, Straw Hat, we saw the trophy that swordsman brought, With Crocodile detained, what do you plan to do with us? Mr. 3 asked cautiously, as they were in the hands of these pirates whose intentions were still unknown. I have a plan for you. You are weak, but I intend to strengthen everyone. You will be members of the Straw Hat Fleet. John announced, shocking everyone. Fleet? Makita asked. Exactly, I will make all of you powerful members of our pirates. Why would we accept this? Mr. 3 asked. I will accept. I will join Mujawarchan's group. Since Crocodile was defeated, there is no more Baroque works. Well, Mr. 3. You don't have much choice, but don't worry. None of you will regret this. Luffy warned and turned his attention to the last cell. Hello again, Jinbai. Upon reaching the cell, he found Jinbai sitting calmly, as if he had been waiting for the captain's visit. Jinbai, it's time to go up to the deck, said Luffy with a confident smile. Jinbai looked at Luffy and nodded without resisting, as he couldn't do much. Luffy opened the cell and helped Jinbai to stand up. Together, they walked towards the deck, where the crew was already gathering, eager to explore Illuminarchy. Upon reaching the deck, Luffy's crew looked at Jinbai, surprised and curious. Some, like Usopp and Chopper, seemed worried about the presence of the 7 warlords of the seas. Luffy, what are you planning? Asked Nami, approaching the captain. Luffy, with his characteristic smile, replied, I'm going to release Jinbai as I promised my brother. It's time to say goodbye to him. Come on guys, say a last word to our friend who accompanied us last week. Goodbye. Jinbai. The chorus was so weak that the only ones who were sincere were Shirahoshi and Ecchi. At least be sincere. Jinbai shouted with his comical face. Ha 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 ha. It's because you're not part of the crew, are you sure you don't want to join the band? Luffy asked the Bluefish Man again. I'll decline. He said dryly and Luffy sighed. Alright, you're free now. Luffy said as he removed the last chains. Jinbai, now free, looked straight at Luffy, with a serious expression. Luffy, I won't join your crew, but I have a request. Take good care of Shirahoshi-sama. You may not have kidnapped her in the way we thought, but you have the responsibility to protect her. And the island of Fishmen will never forgive you if she gets hurt on your boat. Luffy nodded with a confident smile. Don't worry, Jinbai. Shira is my companion and we'll take care of each other. She's already part of my family. Shirahoshi turned extremely red with Luffy mentioning companion and my family. Taking it differently from what Luffy meant. She looked at Jinbai with a slight blush on her cheeks. Jinbai. Thank you for worrying about me. I'll be fine with Luffy and tell Dad and my brothers that I miss them and that I love them very much, but now I have to stay with Luffy-sama. She finished looking at Luffy even redder. Vivi, beside her, was shocked by Shirahoshi's behavior, already seeing what it meant. Jinbai smiled gently at her. You've grown up a lot, Shirahoshi-sama. Your father would be proud. Well, it's time for me to go. With those words, Jinbai bid farewell, diving into the depths of the sea, leaving the Straw Hat crew looking towards the horizon. Luffy, looking at Shirahoshi, said. Well, let's continue our adventure, folks. Next stop, Illuminarchy. The crew, excited, returned to their activities, while Shirahoshi watched the sea, thoughtful but with a slight smile on her face. She knew she was safe and valued among the Straw Hats. As the Black Pearl approached the illuminated Illuminarchy, the imposing silhouette of the ship cut against the horizon, announcing its arrival. The island's port, normally a bustling and cheerful place of trade, began to stir with the news of the infamous Straw Hat Pirates' approach. The inhabitants of Illuminarchy, known for their wealth and tranquility despite the trafficking of arms and slaves, were protected by one of the biggest names in the underworld. Thus, the citizens were not accustomed to visits from hostile notorious pirates. As the ship neared, the port workers, merchants, and citizens stopped their activities, looking fearfully towards the sea. The news of the arrival of the Straw Hat Pirates spread quickly, stirring a mix of fear and curiosity among the population. Muja wars here in Illuminarchy? Murmured a merchant, not overly concerned, as many pirates stopped in this realm, but none caused problems. It can't be. They are the pirates who captured a vice admiral and 7 warlords of the seas. Exclaimed another, recalling the recent stories that had circulated through the seas. Will they cause us trouble? A guard asked, arriving at the port. Of course not, he can't not know that this island belongs to an underworld trade. Another said. Even so, haven't you heard that they captured 7 warlords of the seas? The government must be grinding their teeth with this and sending their main forces to catch them. Do you think this pirate fears the underworld? A third spoke reasonably. As the Black Pearl approached the dazzling Illuminarchy, the Straw Hat crew gathered on deck, their expressions varying between excitement and curiosity. The island glowed in the distance, like a twinkling treasure amidst the vast ocean. Wow, look at that! Exclaimed Usopp, pointing at the island with eyes wide in admiration. I've never seen anything like it. Nami, with an analytical gaze, held her map and observed the island. It's incredible. She commented. The way the light reflects off that crystal mountain. It's like the island itself is alive. And that crystal looks like it's worth a lot of money. Nami had dollar signs in her eyes at that moment. Luffy stood at the ship's railing, a huge smile on his face. This is going to be fun. I'm thinking of stealing that giant crystal. He was already planning his heist. Beside him, Zoro crossed his arms and looked into the distance, a serious look, but not without a hint of interest. I just hope we get some interesting fight, he said. Chopper was perched on Robin's shoulder, his eyes shining with excitement. Do they have different suites there? He asked, with a thought typical of a child. Robin, with a subtle smile, stroked Chopper's head. They must have. Foo-fa-foo. I had heard of the island, but this is the first time I see it. Shirahoshi, accompanied by Megalo, looked at the island with an expression of pure enchantment. It's so beautiful. I've never seen anything like this under the sea, she said with admiration. Bippo, next to Lami, analyzed the horizon. Looks like an important place. Lami, with a keen look, nodded in agreement with Bippo. Yes, places like this usually attract all kinds of people. Vivi and Crew exchanged excited glances, while the princess held her duck firmly. Crew, what a beautiful place, she commented with a smile. Kaeru. The duck raised its hand in agreement. Reiju observed the island with an air of calm confidence. Something tells me we're going to cause another chaos on this entire island, she pondered. Chao-Chu, the crew's little dog, played happily with Laboon and Megalo. He ran excitedly, while Laboon, the whale, splashed water and Megalo, the shark, did acrobatics beside the ship. The other members of the crew also shared this mix of excitement and readiness for what they would find in Luminarchy. As the ship neared the port, the crew prepared to disembark. The Black Pearl, majestic in its structure with sails billowing in the wind, slowly approached the port of Luminarchy. The Straw Hat crew, gathered on the deck, watched with anticipation the bustling docks of the island, where the commotion was visible even from a distance. Prepare to anchor, shouted Nami, as the crew members moved with their tasks of lowering the sail and anchor while the ship lost speed beside the port. Usopp and Hugo, working together, lowered the sails, while Zoro and Chopper in his muscular form, firmly held the ropes, ready to tie the ship to the dock. When the ship stopped at the port, many people stopped to see the notorious pirates with bounties totaling over 1 billion, amounting to 1,245,010 Baileys. It's that flag. The Straw Hats are here, someone shouted, causing a buzz among the crowd with those who did not know of the approaching ship. Luffy, standing at the bow, looked at the gathered crowd with a broad smile. Seems like we're already famous around here, he commented, excited by the reception. The ship finally docked, and the ropes were thrown, tying it firmly to the dock. The crew, now ready to disembark, joined Luffy at the bow. Let's go, guys. Let's see what this island has to offer, Luffy declared enthusiastically, leading the way as they descended from the ship in front of the island's port enveloped with a gigantic crystal. As the crew stepped onto the dock, a mix of fear and admiration emanated from the locals. Some stepped back, while others approached, curious to see the famous pirates up close. Some women screamed at Luffy, seeing a handsome, strong, and famous pirate. The arrival of the Straw Hats in Luminarchy caused uncertainty among the island's people, wondering if their arrival would bring chaos or if they would depart in peace without interfering with their business. In the royal palace of Luminarchy, the king, a man of distinctive appearance with a prominent nose, received the news of the Straw Hats' arrival with a mix of surprise and apprehension. Seated on his ornate throne, he frowned as he listened to his advisor report the recent feats of the notorious pirate Monkey D. Luffy. They captured 7 warlords of the seas and a vice-admiral? The king repeated, incredulously. His fixed gaze on the advisor reflected the seriousness of the situation. And now they are here, in Luminarchy. Without wasting time, the king picked up the Den Mushi and dialed a number known only to a few, the number of Joker. The infamous Doflamingo, king of the underworld, whose influence extended across many islands and nations. The phone rang, and after a brief moment, Doflamingo's characteristic laughter echoed from the other side of the line. Foo-fa-foo, I hear we have some interesting visitors in Luminarchy. Doflamingo spoke with his usual tone of sadistic amusement. Yes, it's the pirate Luffy and his crew. They've just arrived, informed the king, trying to maintain his composure despite the tense situation. Ah, Luffy. That name has been popping up quite a bit lately, Doflamingo commented, clearly entertained. Who would have thought the little pirate would cause such a stir? What should we do, Joker? They are dangerous, and I don't want trouble in Luminarchy. The king expressed his concern. Doflamingo laughed again before responding. Leave them be for now. In fact, I would like to speak with the Straw Hats personally when I get the chance. Maybe they are more useful than we imagine. The king hesitated for a moment, but knew that contradicting Doflamingo was not an option. As you wish, Joker. Great. Keep me informed about their movements. And don't interfere, unless absolutely necessary. Also invite them to the auction. Doflamingo instructed before hanging up. The king placed the phone back on the hook and sighed deeply. As he observed his kingdom through the palace windows, he couldn't help but worry about what the presence of the Straw Hats might mean for Luminarchy and whether the underworld named Joker would prevent any action by Luffy against the kingdom. Chapter 162, Luminarchy 02. With the crew at the harbor, Luffy gazed at the city and the Crystal Mountain with some admiration. This world never ceases to amaze me, he murmured. Wow. Luffy, are we going to steal all that crystal? Yamato asked innocently. Ha ha ha. Most likely, though I don't know how I'll shrink it down that much. Luffy murmured. Anyway, that's a concern for another time. Luffy, with his usual enthusiasm, addressed his crew gathered at the harbor under the gaze of hundreds of curious onlookers wondering whether the pirates would start looting the kingdom or not. Alright, guys. He began, with a confident smile and his gaze sweeping over the faces of his companions. Feel free to explore the island and do whatever you want with a day off. Just remember one thing, meet back here at dusk. We have an underworld auction to attend. Hey little one, what's an underworld auction, do you know, Dory? Broggy asked, as the giants were still unaware of Luffy's plans. I don't know, Broggy, tell us, Captain, what's an underworld auction? Dory inquired. It's a place where rare and sometimes dangerous items are sold. Robin explained. There's a lot of money and powerful people in that place. Are there strong people there, Dory? Broggy murmured. Zoro, crossing his arms, added. I'm expecting a good fight here, haven't found any worthy opponents since entering the Grand Line. Look at the guards who came to greet us, do you think this island has any strength? Rages spoke, pointing to the men at the harbor with spears and weapons. Seeing the crew pointing at them, the guard who seemed to be the captain stepped forward a bit cautiously about the intentions of these pirates and spoke directly to Luffy. Your Excellency, Straw Hat. May we know what you plan on this island? He asked Luffy, who was somewhat disconcerted by the overly formal approach, as he was not used to it. We're just enjoying the island and what it has to offer, so don't worry about us. During the day. Luffy murmured the last part softly. The guards seemed relieved and made way for Luffy and his crew to pass. The rest of the crew expressed their excitement and curiosity in various ways, some eager to explore the island, others more interested in the auction that would take place at night. Make sure to come back here before dusk. I don't want to leave anyone behind. Luffy finally said, giving them a nod. With that, the Straw Hat crew dispersed, each following their path to explore the charms and mysteries of Luminarchy. As the Straw Hat crew dispersed to explore Luminarchy, Luffy decided to stay with Robin and Nami. They walked through the vibrant streets of the city, where every corner revealed a junction with the city and the crystals that characterized the island. Luffy, walking leisurely with his girls, was just looking with interest at the structure of the island, and nothing else seemed worthy in his eyes at the moment. Robin, with her usual calm, smiled softly while looking at the shop windows. You want that necklace, Robin? Luffy asked, seeing her blue eyes on the object. I don't need it, Luffy. She commented timidly. Hey, Luffy. Are you only offering to her? What about me? Nami exclaimed quite dissatisfied. Hey, if you want it, I'll give it to you. I only mentioned it because I saw Robin's interest in the object. Luffy calmly commented. That's strange, why are you being so helpful to her? I also noticed you sneaking out at night sometimes, you're not sleeping together, are you? Nami had a critical look. While Robin seemed to have committed a crime and was blushing, Luffy just smiled and shrugged before entering the store. Yes, we are. Luffy says and opens the door of the shop to buy the necklaces with island crystals. You're lucky I love you and you're going to give me a beautiful necklace. Nami murmured irritably as she entered the shop, because it seemed that Luffy was going to get involved with all the women in the crew, which would make him pay less attention to her. Sometime later, the trio was walking through the city again while Nami and Robin had shiny necklaces around their necks. Nami didn't seem as irritated as before, but Robin was still shy after Luffy's revelation. The Straw Hat crew spread throughout Luminarchy, each member delighting in the city's unique offerings and attractions. The streets were filled with shops selling everything from sparkling jewelry to exotic artifacts, while the tempting aromas of street food filled the air. Amidst the fun, the crew noticed posters of the island's king everywhere. The king had a long, distinctive nose, which led to a recurring joke among them. Could the king be related to Usopp? Luffy asked, laughing. Even Usopp, surprised by the resemblance in another part of the island, asked bewilderedly. Could I have a lost uncle here? As the sun set over Luminarchy, the Straw Hat crew prepared for the exclusive event of the night, the auction. After meeting back at the ship still docked at the harbor, the Straw Hat crew dressed up for the underworld event. The men, including Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, Bippo, Hugo, Ecchi, Broggy, and Dory, dressed elegantly for the occasion. Luffy, in a classic black suit, kept his distinctive straw hat, adding a touch of personality to the formal attire. All members wore similar outfits. Only Chopper had a small smoker matching him in his smaller form. The women of the crew, including Nami, Lami, Robin, Reiju, Nojiko, Kuina, Alvida, Shirahoshi, and Vivi, engaged in a friendly competition to choose the most stunning dresses. Nami opted for an elegant orange dress, emphasizing her curves, while Robin chose a long blue dress with a subtle floral pattern. Reiju shone in a bold red dress while competing with Lami in a black dress, capturing everyone's attention. Nojiko and Kuina chose styles reflecting their unique personalities, with Nojiko in calm blue tones and Kuina in a dress honoring her swordsmanship skills. Alvida, with her confident stance, chose a red dress. Shirahoshi dazzled with a dress reflecting the beauty of the ocean, leaving her tail exposed, and Vivi presented herself with characteristic royal elegance. The only odd one out was Yamato, still wearing her Wano attire, refusing to change. Together, they formed a diverse and impressive group, ready to make their mark at the auction. Luffy left the animals on the ship docked in the harbor so they could act from that side. Crew, Laboon, and Chaochu would act as soon as they received the signal from Luffy. The competition heated up as they decided who would accompany Luffy to the event. Nami, Yamato, Alvida, each tried to convince Luffy to choose her as his partner for the night, while Nojiko and Robin calmly watched the situation with a hint of amusement. Luffy, clearly uncomfortable with the attention, just laughed and tried to calm the situation. Eventually, he proposed a Solomonic solution: he would alternate walking with each of them throughout the night. So the Straw Hat crew set off for the auction, a mix of elegance and anticipation in the air. As they walked through the illuminated streets of Luminarchy, they attracted everyone's attention, a sight of strength, mystery, and charm, prepared for a night that would shake the island's foundations. Upon entering the auction venue, an imposing house filled with rustic decorations and crystals, the crew immediately became the center of attention as they headed for the entrance. The luxurious hall was filled with underworld criminals and nobles from various kingdoms, all elegantly dressed and immersed in whispered conversations and negotiations. When Luffy and his crew entered, a momentary silence fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to them, some in admiration, others in fear, and many with a mix of both feelings. The fact that Luffy had a bounty of 300 million Baileys weighed in the air, making even the most powerful criminals and nobles feel a chill of respect and apprehension. Whispers began to spread quickly through the hall. "It's Monkey D. Luffy. The son of the world's greatest criminal and grandson of the naval hero, Garp," was heard whispering, as curious eyes assessed each member of the crew, from the imposing Zoro to the elegant Nami. The recent exploits of the Straw Hats in Alabasta, especially the capture of 7 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral, had spread like wildfire, increasing their fame and fearsomeness in all parts of the world. "It's really him, Monkey D. Luffy. They say he defeated 7 warlords of the seas and a vice admiral. Such audacity. This group. They're not mere rocky pirates. There's something about them that exudes danger and strength. We need to keep an eye on them." Some whispered, while others looked on in admiration. "He is even more impressive in person." Some women commented, fascinated by the young pirate's presence. "The most handsome man I've ever seen." A lady murmured, unable to take her eyes off Luffy. The women of the crew did not go unnoticed. "How can they be so beautiful?" Several attendees questioned, impressed with Nami's elegance, Robin's grace, Reiju's boldness, and Shirahoshi's natural beauty. "And that's a real mermaid. I've never seen such beauty," someone exclaimed, pointing to Shirahoshi. Ecchi, the fishman, received mixed looks. Some showed disgust due to prejudice against his species, but most agreed that it was better not to provoke a member of the Straw Hats. Better not mess with them. A noble whispered, aware of the power and fame the group carried. Luffy, with his confident and relaxed smile, seemed indifferent to the whispers and stares. He walked with a carelessness that starkly contrasted with the room's tension. His demeanor not only reaffirmed his reputation but also heightened the aura of mystery and power around him. As Luffy and his crew began to mingle among those present at the auction, the event manager, a man of elegant posture and shrewd gaze with a short stature, approached them. With a diplomatic smile, he bowed respectfully and spoke in a polite tone, "Captain Monkey D. Luffy, it's an honor to have you here at our auction. In light of your recent feats and notoriety, we've prepared a special VIP room for you and your companions." Luffy, with his usual carefree smile, looked at the manager and nodded. Sounds fun, let's go. The manager led the crew through the hall filled with criminals and nobles, taking them to a more secluded and elevated area. The VIP room offered a privileged view of the auction stage through a glass, with comfortable velvet armchairs and a table laden with delicacies and fine drinks. The crew members looked around, settling in as they drank and ate the food provided by the auction house. Luffy, walking up to the room's window, observed the auction below. I hope there's something interesting to bid on, he murmured, owning a store that could buy almost anything in this world, but participating in an auction was a good diversion. The auction didn't take long to start, with a series of rare and valuable items being presented and eagerly bid on by the attendees. Nothing interesting. Where are the swords? Zoro complained. It's an auction, there's everything. Be patient, Zoro. Kuina murmured. Luffy and his crew watched with varying interest. Nami and Robin seemed particularly attentive to the more valuable items, while Zoro remained uninterested, more focused on the drink in his hand. Usopp and Chopper were amazed by each new item revealed, commenting among themselves about their rarity and value. As the auction progressed, the atmosphere began to change. The presenter, a man with a powerful voice and imposing presence, announced that the next part of the auction would be dedicated to living goods. A murmur ran through the crowd, and the Straw Hats' expressions hardened. One after another, slaves were brought onto the stage. They were human men, women, and even children, some clearly frightened and others resigned to their cruel fate. Bids began, with voices rising to make offers for these human lives. Luffy, whose normally cheerful expression had turned somber, clenched his fists in anger. The injustice before his eyes deeply infuriated him. The rest of the crew also showed clear signs of disgust. This is disgusting, Nami murmured, her face showing contempt. Robin, with her usual calm, added. It's a grim reminder of how cruel this world can be. The crew's eyes turned to Luffy, waiting for his reaction. The captain of the Straw Hats stared intently at the stage, his hardened gaze suggesting he was pondering an action. We won't act yet, we have time. Meanwhile, they were about to receive a visit in their VIP room from the king himself, holding a specific Den Mushi, wearing glasses, and with an iconic smile. Chapter 163, Luminarchy 03. As human slaves were brought onto the stage, the auctioneer, with a voice echoing authority and greed, announced each of the slaves, describing them as if they were mere commodities. The first to be presented were men and women of various ages and nationalities. Some seemed to have been fishermen or rural workers, captured and forced into a terrible fate. Others looked like people who had already lost all hope, their gazes empty and resigned. Bids started to be made, with values varying, but quickly reaching exorbitant figures. The bids for these male human beings reached up to 2 million Baileys among the strongest. Nami, whose own history was stained by slavery and loss, felt each bid as a personal blow. How can they treat people this way? She wondered in a low voice, her expression a mix of anger and sadness. This is so cruel. Shirahoshi commented, frightened. The crew represented freedom at sea, seeing such a scene was abominable to him. As the auction continued, an even more disturbing situation unfolded. Semi-nude women were brought onto the stage, displayed in a degrading manner before the ravenous crowd of buyers. These women, some young and others older, were presented with a vulgarity that only served to accentuate the obscenity of the event. The auctioneers described each woman lasciviously, highlighting their physical characteristics and suggesting indecent uses for them. Bids for these women started high and quickly escalated, with some reaching the figure of 5 million Baileys. It was a scene that distilled the purest form of exploitation and dehumanization. This is sick, Luffy said aloud, unable to hide his disgust. Do we still have to watch all of this? Vivi complained, not appreciating any of what she witnessed. Hugo, whose past was also marked by slavery, felt a wave of overwhelming anger. His fists were clenched so tightly that rocks began to form from his devil fruit power. Luffy turned to his companion. Calm down, Hugo. We'll sort this out, but we can't lose our heads, he said in a low but firm tone, trying to calm his companion. Many other crew members had distastes, some looked indifferent, but the gleam in their eyes said it wasn't a scene appreciated. Chopper and Vivi almost cried seeing this. At the height of the tension in the VIP room, an unexpected moment interrupted the growing indignation of the Straw Hat crew. The doors opened and the King of Luminarchy, who they saw on the posters, entered, his imposing presence and prominent nose immediately drawing attention. He approached Luffy with a diplomatic smile, but his eyes betrayed a hidden urgency. Luffy looked at him indifferently, wondering what that guy was doing invading his crew's space without asking if he was welcome or not, whether a king or not. Soon his guards entered with him, and the auction manager stood by his side. Excellency Monkey D. Luffy, this is King Javier Lumin the 7th of Luminarchy, the manager said.
We're here because a very important guest from the underworld wishes to speak with you. He's known as Joker. The king suddenly announced, watching the Straw Hat Captain's reaction closely. Luffy, who was indifferent, not liking the approach, narrowed his eyes upon hearing the name. He knew exactly who this Joker was, Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the seas and a notorious figure in the New World. A member of the crew frowned at that moment, Lami, clenching her fist, as this was someone she wanted to kill. Joker, huh? Seems like he's interested in us. Luffy murmured, his casual tone hiding the strategic calculation in his mind. He knew that any involvement with Doflamingo could lead to complications, but it was also an opportunity to state his position regarding the current king of Dressrosa. Lami approached Luffy and whispered. Be careful, Luffy. Doflamingo isn't someone to be trifled with. He is dangerous and unpredictable. The king, sensing the tension in the air, tried to ease the situation. Don't worry, he just wants to talk. It will be in a safe place. Luffy nodded slowly, his mind already working on different scenarios. Alright, let's see what he wants, he said, stepping forward. The VIP room of the auction fell into silence as Luffy answered the Den Mushi. All eyes were on him, curiosity in the air. The king of Luminarchy handed the transmitter to Luffy, who didn't hesitate to answer it. Ketcha on the other side of the line, Doflamingo greeted Luffy with his characteristic laugh and honeyed voice. Foo-fya-fa-foo. Monkey D. Luffy, it's a pleasure to finally speak with you. Luffy, without any trace of hesitation and with a provocative smile, responded immediately, already angry from those slaves. Hello Joker, it's a surprise for me to be talking to you here, since it's not every day we talk to Kaido's dog. The room, already steeped in silence, seemed to freeze even more. The crew members exchanged surprised and nervous glances, while the king of Luminarchy swallowed hard, not expecting this development. Doflamingo, on the other side of the line, maintained his composure, but the tone of his voice revealed a slight trace of surprise and irritation. You're more audacious than I imagined, Mugiwara. But be careful, insolence can cost you dearly. Luffy, unperturbed, kept his smile. I'm just telling the truth. So, Joker, what do you want? First answer me, how do you know about my involvement with Kaido? His voice remained as annoying as ever. Well, I'm not going to tell you and fuck what you think about it. Luffy spoke, leaving both the king and the manager stunned by Luffy's audacity. The voice of Doflamingo, transmitted through the Den Mushi, took on a threatening tone, marked by a chill. I wanted to negotiate some things with you, Mugiwara. But you have no idea who you're dealing with. Underestimating me and the forces behind me will be your biggest mistake. Luffy, defiant and fearless, didn't miss the chance to mock Doflamingo. With an ironic smile, he replied, I'm trembling. Not. You're just another 7 warlords of the seas, and I've dealt with them before. I'll give you one more chance, hand over Trafalgar D. Lamy from your crew and I can save you from your imminent destruction. Joker spoke with a tone of anger and demand. Do you talk such nonsense there in Dressrosa? How did you become a king like that? Demanding one of my crewmates is the same as asking to die, are you wanting that so much, Doflamingo? The room remained silent, the crew members watching the interaction, alternating between tension and admiration for Luffy's audacity. Luffy's provocation clearly irritated Doflamingo, but he maintained control, responding with a cold and calculating voice. Be careful, Luffy. My patience has limits. Don't provoke a sleeping dragon. Luffy shrugged, unconcerned. Dragon or not, I don't care. I was here to have fun, but then I saw your living items in the hall and the audacity of this king and the manager to invade the space where me and my crew were, so I'm not in a good mood anymore. This left the men who were not from the crew quite nervous about their mistake. I could save you, but I see that you are just an arrogant kid. Your time is running out and the one you said is my master has already sent forces to hunt you in this sea. Doflamingo mocked. I see. That should be expected. Luffy understood what Doflamingo meant by that. After all, Yamato is in his crew, and her image in the newspaper and on the wanted posters would reach Kaido one way or another. He was always aware that he would be hunted. Joker or Doflamingo, I should thank you for this information. Kaido couldn't came to this sea without bringing a fleet, which would take a lot of time. King is essential to be with Kaido, Queen wouldn't leave the New World so easily, so the person who is pursuing us must be Jack, the Drought or some members of the Flying Six. Luffy commented calmly. That old bastard, I'll beat him when I get to Wano. Yamato exclaimed furiously in the background. Yamato's father is Kaido? Vivi exclaimed in shock, as she still didn't know this fact, just like Robin who looked shocked at the woman dressed in Wano's attire. Luffy turned back to the Den Mushi and began to laugh when he saw a silence from Doflamingo. He started to laugh openly at the prospect of facing such a formidable opponent, Luffy expressed his excitement for the imminent hunt. "So, Jack is after us. This is going to be interesting," he said, without a hint of fear or hesitation. On the other side of the line, Doflamingo frowned, realizing that Luffy was not an ordinary pirate. Luffy's lack of fear and his willingness to face the forces of Kaido, one of the most feared names in the world as if it were an adventure, was disconcerting even to him. Doflamingo, well aware of Kaido's ferocity and his subordinates, was impressed and even a bit disturbed by Luffy's courage. Luffy spoke again into the silent communication device with Joker's face. "So, Joker, since we're enemies, it's okay if I loot this auction house, right? You won't mind that?" On the other side of the line, Doflamingo visibly gets irritated with Luffy's audacity. "If you dare to do this, Mugiwara, I swear you will pay dearly. Don't underestimate what I can do." Doflamingo threatens, his voice laden with fury and authority. Luffy, however, doesn't seem the least bit intimidated by the threat. With an even wider smile, he responds in a challenging tone, "I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do, Joker. You won't be the first 7 warlords of the seas I take down." And, with a carefree click, Luffy hangs up the Den Mushi, cutting off the connection abruptly. The room, which was in tense silence, Luffy looks at the king and the manager, openly disturbed, and speaks with his arms crossed. "Well, folks, it looks like we have a looting party ahead." Many crew members, initially shocked by Luffy's audacity in challenging Doflamingo and even Kaido, soon follow with a sharp look. They prepare for what promises to be an exciting night at the auction house, ready to follow their captain into yet another audacious raid and end these slavers. Luffy, with a confident and challenging smile, breaks the glass, drawing everyone's attention while they were bidding on a frightened, crying girl on the stage, and announces, loud and clear, not just to his crew, but to the entire auction house, "Everyone, listen up. Now, we, the Straw Hat Pirates, are going to start a raid. We're going to steal everything and everyone present here. So please behave while we're robbing all of you." His statement echoes through the hall, causing a mix of shock and panic among those present. And with a charged atmosphere, the Straw Hat crew prepares for the inevitable confrontation. Zoro, with a determined look, adjusts his swords, while Usopp, though nervous, seems ready for battle. Hugo, still containing his anger, positions himself strategically, ready to use his power and physical strength to protect his comrades and the oppressed. Nami looks around, her expression reflecting a mix of anger and determination in the face of the injustice of the slaves. Bippo, Ecchi, and Kuina quickly face off against the king's guards. Lami looks at Luffy with some admiration for defending her and prepares her sword while opening her room. Chopper, in his human form, seems ready to offer combat support. His eyes show a mix of determination with Luffy's words. Alvida, with her confident smile and mace in hand, is ready to face any challenge. Nojiko, standing next to her sister Nami, keeps a serious expression, her fists seeming ready to explode at any moment. Shirahoshi, still frightened, keeps her gaze fixed on Luffy, showing admiration and trust. Vivi and Robin exchange understanding glances, knowing the time to act had come. Rachel, as elegant as ever, displays a confident smile, prepared for what's to come while taking a cigarette out of her pocket. Yamato moves to Luffy's side. The giants Broggy and Dory seem very excited as they talk to each other. The crew is finally ready to act. Chapter 164, Luminarchy 04. As the turmoil takes over the auction, the Straw Hat Pirates spring into action, ready to unleash chaos. Yamato. Luffy, with a determined look, calls for Yamato, who promptly responds with a smile. With mutual understanding, they both release their King's Haki auras, a wave of power that spreads through the place. Immediately, guards and nobles, as well as the criminals present, succumb to the overwhelming power of the King's Haki, falling unconscious one after another. The room, once filled with voices and agitation, is now dominated by a muffled silence, interrupted only by the moans of the faint. King Javier Lumen, the 7th of Luminarchy, remains conscious, but clearly stunned and terrified by the power displayed by Luffy and Yamato. "What's going on?" he exclaims, his voice trembling with fear and confusion. Luffy approaches the king with a mischievous smile, revealing his plan. "Don't worry, King. You need to stay conscious to guide us in this auction," he says in a playful tone, but with a menacing glint in his eyes. Javier Lumen 7, realizing the seriousness of the situation, quickly responds, fear evident in his voice. "What do you plan to do?" With a sinister smile, Luffy replies. "You're going to obey us. I've killed a king before, so you better cooperate if you want to get out of here alive." "Don't worry, I only kill kings who annoy me." The king's immediate response is pure fear and submission. "Yes, I'll do anything." He agrees promptly, aware of the fate that awaits him if he challenges the notorious pirate. The atmosphere in the room is now a mix of tension and expectation, with the Straw Hats in control. Luffy then turns to his crew, distributing tasks efficiently. Hugo, you and the others free all the slaves. Leave no one behind. He orders, his serious tone indicating the gravity of the situation. Lami, use your room to collect all the jewels and valuable items. I want you to clean this place out. Luffy continues, looking at Lami, who nods and begins to execute his task with surgical precision. Nami, you're in charge of organizing and counting all the gold. Make sure nothing is left behind. Luffy says, knowing that Nami is the best suited for the task. Luffy then addresses his fighters. Zoro, Usopp, Reiju, Kuina, you four, defend the entrance. No one gets in, no one gets out, until we're done here. Luffy instructs. And Yamato, you're coming with me. We need the king to guide us to the vault. Luffy concludes, giving a meaningful look to Yamato, who nods in understanding. Yamato, with his imposing stature and Wano attire, follows alongside Luffy. The king, visibly nervous, leads the way, guiding them through the auction's corridors towards the vault. Outside the auction, a group of soldiers is on high alert, aware of the chaos unfolding inside. The Straw Hat Pirates have taken over the auction house and are holding hostages inside. Shouts one of the soldiers, his voice laden with urgency. We can't just stand here. We have to act now. Exclaims another, looking around frantically. Damn, how can we face pirates of this caliber? Questions a third, anxiety evident on his face. Someone call for marine reinforcements, quick. Demands a fourth soldier, knowing that only they could handle a threat of this level. Meanwhile, an observer points towards the entrance of the auction house. Look, people are coming out. It's a group of four, 2 men and 2 women, clearly recognized as members of the Straw Hats. Zoro, with an expression of slight disappointment, comments, looks like we're facing just soldiers and guards after all. Don't complain, Zoro. Our job is to keep anyone from getting in. Responds Usopp, already preparing his peculiar arsenal. Meanwhile, inside the auction, Luffy whistled, impressed with the reinforced structure he found. Wow, this is really impressive. He said, assessing the robust vault door. Yamato, by his side, looked at Luffy with an amused expression. Do you have a plan to open this, Luffy? She asked. Luffy, with a mischievous glint in his eyes, replied. Of course I do. Let's show them how the Straw Hats do a heist. He then turned to the trembling king. And you, king, you know how to open this, don't you? No, your excellency Mujiwara, only a few men of Joker have access to this, and they are not present. He said almost pleadingly, and Luffy saw at least sincerity in that. I see. Yamato, let's blow this door up. He said and went to the door with his girl to punch it. The king watched stunned as Luffy and Yamato punched the door, Luffy with increased strength and Yamato with haki. In no time, the door caved in with force, pushed by both their strengths, and the place filled with gold and Baileys quickly appeared to them. Luffy wasted no time and took all the gold for the system, leaving the king stunned as the gold and money disappeared from his sight. Let's go, we have more things to steal. Luffy and Yamato moved on without paying any more attention to the king and went to meet the others at the auction stage. All the slaves were freed, many with explosive collars, but getting the keys was quite easy since there was no one to stop them inside. Everyone looked gratefully at the crew, and Luffy approached the piles of gold Nami was counting. Let's go, this gold I won't put in the system, keep it for yourselves to divide, later. Luffy said, and Nami quickly rejoiced. After everything was ready, they began to leave the auction with the ex-slaves, and Luffy encountered almost all of the kingdom's soldiers fallen due to the fight by Reiju, Kuina, Zoro, and Usopp. Upon leaving the auction house, Luffy addressed King Javier Lumen the 7th of Luminarchy, who was still trembling with fear and uncertainty. Your Majesty. Luffy called, his voice firm and full of authority. The king, with a nervous nod, responded, yes yes, what do you wish? Luffy, looking around the bright and sparkling island, declared confidently with a smile, I'm leaving, but I'm charmed by this island. I've decided I want it as my territory. I'll be back soon to claim it, taking it from Joker's clutches. The king, still trying to process the situation, couldn't hide his surprise. But, what do you mean? This is Joker's territory, you can't just... Before he could finish, Vivi interrupted, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Luffy, weren't you going to steal the island's crystal? Why did you change your mind? Luffy, with a carefree shrug, replied, initially, yes, but then I thought better of it. This island is much more valuable than just its crystal. I'll leave the crystal here for now. It'll be more interesting to conquer the entire island. Meanwhile, at the port, boom. The booming explosion at the port reverberated through the air, drawing everyone's attention. In a desperate act, the soldiers tried to capture the Straw Hat Pirates' ship to negotiate the release of the hostages. However, they were greeted by a frightening sight, a colossal three-headed monster emerging from the Black Pearl, spewing furious flames upon them. The resulting explosion echoed across the island, casting a mantle of fear over all present. "Run! A monster!" The soldiers screamed in panic, as they vainly tried to protect themselves from the relentless fire. Luffy, watching the scene from afar, couldn't help but smile amusedly. "Looks like Chaochu is really having fun," he commented. Panic and chaos ensued among the soldiers, each seeking shelter from the imminent threat. The entire town was in chaos, realizing that no one could stop the pirate crew. Beside Luffy, Shirahoshi looked sadly at the island of Luminarchy, her eyes filled with admiration for its beauty. "Are we leaving already, Luffy-sama? The island is so beautiful," she lamented, her soft voice reflecting her sadness at leaving such a place. Luffy, with a confident look, assured the mermaid princess, "Don't worry, Shira. This island will be ours, and you can enjoy it as much as you want when we come back." He already considered this place his, wanting to take it from Joker's hands. As the Straw Hat crew approached the Black Pearl, Chaochu continued to repel anyone who tried to approach the ship. Luffy, using his King's Haki aura, caused the remaining soldiers at the port to fall unconscious, ensuring a safe departure for his crew. With an excited look, Luffy announced the crew's next destination. "Let's go, we have an interesting place to go to, it's called Sky Island." The statement aroused surprise and curiosity among the crew members, who exchanged questioning glances. But without time to ask, everyone started boarding while Luffy took a miniature ship from his safe for the ex-slaves who followed him to the port. Thus, the Black Pearl set off from Luminarchy towards Jaya as Luffy instructed Nami. The freed and grateful slaves entered a second ship that was towed by the Black Pearl, which was the ship Luffy took from the Goa Kingdom and thought to use here until he saw what he would do with those people. While all the chaos was happening that night, in another part of the sea, crossing the Red Line, there was a country that everyone said was the country of fairies, where love infects all its population, and in a palace on a huge mountain, the atmosphere did not seem to represent the country. This country is Dressrosa, and on its opulent and imposing throne, Doflamingo sits enveloped in anger and irritation. His normally controlled and malicious expression is now marked by untamable fury. He had already heard of Luffy's looting in Luminarchy, and each word about the chaos unleashed by the Straw Hat only increases his discontent after losing the slaves and the auction treasure that he had not taken for 2 months and was scheduled to take the gold the following week. "That Mugiwara will pay for every act of insolence," Doflamingo growled, his teeth grinding in fury. Viola, watching from a safe distance, couldn't help but be stunned. She had never seen Doflamingo so furious, she had never seen anyone stand up to Doflamingo, she thought no one was bold enough for that. But this monkey D. Luffy didn't even care if Doflamingo had connections with Kaido. "He thinks he can challenge my power and get away with it. I will show him the true power of 7 warlords of the seas. He is full of himself just because he defeated Crocodile and Jinbai. Does he not fear Kaido or Jack? I won't even let Jack get to him first," Doflamingo declared, his voice laden with a deadly threat. He stood up, his posture exuding authority and danger. "I'm heading to the beginning of the Grand Line. I will take care of this insolent pirate myself," Viola observed, her heart racing, wondering what would happen, while other members of Doflamingo's crew asked if they could accompany him. However, Doflamingo said he didn't need them. Doflamingo walked to the palace window and jumped out, casting his strings towards the clouds and pulling himself to fly through the sky towards the first half of the Grand Line. Chapter 165, Skypia 01. After several days of sailing, the Black Pearl, along with a second ship filled with people who were slaves, found itself stationary in the calm waters near Jaya. The crew, accustomed to their captain's impulsive style, gathered on deck, curious about the sudden stop and their captain summoning the entire crew to discuss their plans. Nami, with an expression of perplexity and curiosity, turned to Luffy, who stood on the bow of the Black Pearl. The sea around them was a vast expanse of blue, calm and endless. "Why have we stopped here, Luffy?" she asked, with a hint of curiosity in her voice. Luffy, with his iconic straw hat firmly in place, slowly turned to the crew. His face was lit up with an enigmatic smile and eyes shining with excitement. "There's something I need to say. We're no longer going to Jaya," he announced, his voice filled with intriguing certainty. Nojiko, with an expression of surprise, interrupted, "We're not going? But we're so close, why change our mind now?" Her voice reflected the confusion spreading among the crew. Luffy, enjoying everyone's attention, pulled out a small, mysterious object from his pocket and tossed it to Nami. "Look at this and tell me where it points," he said. Nami, catching the eternal pose with a nimble movement, examined it closely. Her eyes widened in surprise. "It's pointing up?" she exclaimed. Luffy nodded, his smile widening even more. Exactly. Many have asked about the Sky Island in recent days. I decided it was time to reveal our true destination. A chorus of exclamations echoed across the deck. Usopp, with eyes shining with excitement, exclaimed, "An island in the sky? That's amazing, Luffy. How are we going to get there?" Zoro cast a challenging gaze toward the sky. "It doesn't matter where it is, as long as I can continue my training to get stronger. But an island in the sky? That sounds like an interesting challenge," he murmured, a slight smile of anticipation appearing. Rachel, the voice of reason and experience, looked at Luffy with a slight smile. "An island in the sky, huh? That sounds like a worthy adventure. I'm curious to see what awaits us," she said. Lami looked at her with arrogance. "I thought you would be scared of such a thing." As the two argued, Ecchi shouted excitedly. "Nay. The captain always takes us to the most amazing places. I can't wait to see the sky." Robin, with her usual calm demeanor but a glint of curiosity in her eyes, asked softly. "So, are we really going to this island now?" Luffy looked at everyone and nodded. "Yes, I even thought of going to Jaya, but the place is just a haven of weak pirates and we would only become some kind of celebrity there, as it would just be a place to beat up some extras who mess with us, so I decided not to enter the island now," Luffy explained. Chopper, with an expression of childlike curiosity, tilted his head to the side. "Extras? What does that mean, Luffy?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine confusion. "So, we are going to the sky, how high?" Kuina raised the question before Luffy could respond to Chopper. 10,000 meters. There's a phenomenon in these waters that makes ships rise known as knock upstream, but we won't be following that route. "And how do you plan to make the ship rise 10,000 meters? Vivi asked curiously. Luffy, with a confident smile, revealed his plan. "With my more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, I can manipulate gravity and weight. I've improved my ability, and now I can use two applications at the same time. I will take our ship to the sky," he explained, his voice full of pride in his recent progress. In recent days, as the team trained, Luffy improved the performance of his fruit and gained new benefits. Now he could set the applications at 50 times and divide it into two categories, which made him extremely OP. He could put strength and speed at 25 times each in a fight. Luffy could also simply shrink everyone down and fly with his wings to the sky, but that idea seemed too easy and without any adventure, while his crew could share the feeling of seeing the ship rise higher and higher. "That's amazing, Captain!" Vippo shouted excitedly. Luffy, pleased with his powers, said. "Yes, with my enhanced more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, we can make the Black Pearl fly. And with Nami controlling Garuda's winds to propel the ship, we'll reach Sky Island in the blink of an eye," he explained, his words infusing new vigor into the crew as he continued. "So, it's to Sky Island we go. Everyone get ready," declared Luffy, his voice resonating with authority and adventure. "Yes, Captain," came the unanimous response from everyone. Activity buzzed on the Black Pearl, with the crew engaged in adjusting sails and ropes, optimizing the ship to better propel it upwards. Meanwhile, Luffy headed to the second ship, which they had been towing since Luminarchy. On board, the former slaves, now dressed in clothes provided by the ship of the Kingdom of Goa, eagerly awaited the next plan of these pirates who had saved them. With everyone noticing Luffy approaching in the air, they all gathered on the deck. "You are no longer slaves, but we still need to take you to a safe place. Anywhere we leave you, you are subject to being captured. We're going to a very special place and I can't leave you here. You need to come with us," began Luffy, his confident and calm tone conveying security. The looks of the former slaves varied between uncertainty and hope. One of them, a middle-aged man with the marks of a hard life, asked hesitantly. "Where will you take us, sir?" Luffy smiled. "To Sky Island. But for that, I need to shrink this ship and store it for a while. It will be a unique experience, but I promise you'll be safe." A young woman spoke timidly. "Sir, we trust you. You saved us and we are willing to follow wherever you lead." Luffy nodded, touched by the trust placed in him. "I will ensure your safety. It will be just for a few hours. Then, we will be in a place where the sky is the limit." Luffy then shrank the ship with everyone inside and placed them in a safe place, returning to the Black Pearl, where everyone looked prepared for the next journey. Back on the Black Pearl, the atmosphere was palpably excited. Shirahoshi, with eyes shining with adventure, couldn't contain her joy. "We're going to see Sky Island, Megalo," she exclaimed, hugging the shark who grunted in response, sharing her excitement. Vivi, with a contagious smile, joined the festive atmosphere. "It must be amazing to fly to the sky," she commented, observing the final preparations. Luffy, firmly positioning himself, focused on the Black Pearl. Time to start. He announced confidently as he placed his hands on the deck of the ship. With deep concentration, he activated the power of his more fruit model, Amplify Human Devil Fruit, reducing the weight of the ship to below 1% and doing the same with gravity. Almost immediately, the Black Pearl began to levitate over the waters, to the surprise and admiration of everyone on board. Wow, the Black Pearl can even fly! Yamato exclaimed, his eyes glowing with admiration and a touch of pride. Alvida, standing beside Luffy, watched the scene with a smile. This ship really never ceases to amaze us, she commented, admiring her husband's power. Well, let's continue. Nami. Luffy turned to his navigator who nodded. The ship was slowly rising, about 50 meters above the sea. Nami released her wings and went under the ship, using her own hands to tilt it diagonally. She then moved to the back of the ship, positioning it so that its upward angle wouldn't affect the crew. Let's first release the ship's nitro and Nami will do the rest. Luffy spoke and the ship gained momentum, taking off with the energy used behind the ship. As it flew, Nami released her tornadoes with her hands to propel the ship, gaining even more speed. Dory, standing next to Broggy, couldn't hide his excitement. This is incredible, Broggy. I've never seen anything like it, he exclaimed, his eyes wide. Broggy, equally impressed, simply agreed. True, Dory, our young captain always surprises us. Shirahoshi, clinging to Megalo, screamed with joy. We're flying, Megalo. Flying to the sky. The mermaid princess was clearly ecstatic with the experience. Zoro, watching the scene with his arms crossed, couldn't help but express his admiration. Well, this is really amazing, he admitted, impressed by Luffy and Nami's abilities. Nojiko approached Nami, concerned. Is everything alright, Nami? Can you control all this? She asked, watching her sister's concentration. Nami, without losing focus, confidently replied. Of course, Nojiko. I've faced bigger challenges before, said Nami, easily maintaining her power. Clouds above. Bippo shouted as the ship invaded a massive quantity of clouds. These clouds are so big, this must be Sky Island. Luffy commented, noting its gigantic size, large enough to fit 3 or 4 islands. The ship entered the area, and all they could see was white, filled with clouds as they continued to ascend. The Black Pearl, after emerging from the sea of clouds, revealed a spectacular panorama that left everyone on board speechless. The sky was lit by a radiant sun, whose rays reflected off the clouds below, creating a spectacle of twinkling lights. The clouds, thick and soft, formed a vast white sea beneath the Black Pearl. I'll remove all the effects from the ship, Nami, you can rest, and everyone prepare for the descent. Luffy announced before releasing the ship from the effects of his devil fruit, and it began to fall. With a small thud on the clouds, the ship didn't sink but remained atop the clouds as if it were on the sea. Usopp, always ready for an adventure, couldn't contain his excitement. Look at this place, everyone. It's like we're in a dream, he said, pointing to the white, undulating expanse of clouds below them. Look at this place, Raja said, quite fascinated by the location. Incredible, murmured Lummi, usually restrained in his emotions, but clearly impressed with the scene before them. She looked around, absorbing the surreal landscape. Vivi, with a sparkle in her eyes, expressed her admiration. Really, this place exists. It's like something out of a legend or a fairy tale, she said, her voice reflecting a mix of joy and astonishment. Looks like cotton candy. Can you eat it? Chopper shouted excitedly. Let's move forward, Luffy announced. Then the Black Pearl finally moved forward, cutting through the clouds in the sea of clouds. As the crew was still admiring the environment,